man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching.
On this 20th day of August, it is Thursday. Good morning, and how are you doing? City Muga, I see you.
Well, City Muga also sees you.
You see me, eh?
And City Muga wishes to respond by telling you that his morning is good.
You know how you walk through the world and you're not quite sure if you're being seen or recognized? So you can actually see me, right?
Okay. If you put
I'm
it that way,
asking.
then yes, and I'm responding. Okay. That's Kenyanese for you.
Okay. It's like in Hausa, okay, is Hausa one of the languages in northern Nigeria, the predominant language. It's like when you're greeting somebody that you're familiar with or somebody that you know, you don't actually say hello. So like now, I would say, Charles. So no, Charles. I wouldn't say hello or good morning. I would say Charles.
The intonation
would rise at the end.
would be a greeting.
Yes, so you understand that I'm greeting you. If I just say Charles, then it's
Like
like
you're castigating me,
yeah.
or you are warning me about something, or I have caused you displeasure.
right. But if I was greeting somebody who was older than me, I would curtsy and I would say Inakwana, good morning. But if it was somebody I
Repeat
knew,
that again. Repeat that again.
if I was greeting somebody who was older than me,
That's
or
very good.
I would curtsy
Okay.
and say Inakwana.
Okay. Now, from now on, that's how you're going to be greeting me. Hi, City. Gone. Finished. Finished. I will not respond. Hi, City. Forget it. I'm not going to respond. Disrespectful person that you are.
So you want me to be curtsying? Now, in southwest Nigeria, I would kneel. Don't like that one. Curtsy is better.
No. The whole works. If you're curtsying, bowing, tipping your head, whatever it is, blinking, the whole works.
So this high city out the window is not working anymore. Don't.
Once you've introduced me to this honor-laden greeting, that supplements my personage.
Then you want to take us back to archaic times.
Those are not archaic times.
So you want to be told Inakwana.
Latiff.
No. It's not told, Chief. It's what precedes the telling. Harry.
Latiff.
Zakatsi. Nduh.
Latif.
So how do you respond when you say that?
You ask me also, Nduh.
Nduh.
If you're younger than me, you say Inakwana in the morning. But if you're my age and we're familiar with one another, Nduh.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning to you too, Nduh Okoh. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
So have you told City in Nakwana? It's like Nakwana.
No, it starts tomorrow.
It's from tomorrow now.
It's tomorrow.
Today is for practice.
Today has
And tomorrow...
Today was introductory.
And you ile preamble.
Yes.
And tomorrow...
The real thing. I'm not Hausa, by the way. I just grew up in the north.
Nani?
And I
doesn't
understand the
matter.
culture and
You're
tradition.
So you're
Nigerian.
Nigerian. And we know Nigeria is one country. Sindio? just like for many people in the West Africa is one country.
I'm telling you. But, okay. Voila. Say ça.
Voila. Okay, that's also Hausa.
It could be if you want it to be.
Okay, that tribe is very mzungu, lakini.
Which one?
Meet somebody and say, Nduh.
It's just the way. It's
Robert?
like
It's like,
familiarism.
But I think about it.
Robert?
Yeah, but...
Exactly.
That's
That's
Very
what it is.
mzungu.
No, you've got it, kabisa.
Yeah.
That one is even, should we say, more meaning laden than just hello, Robert.
Yes.
Robert.
Yes.
Msikia hiyo?
Okay. A very good morning to you and welcome to the show this beautiful Thursday morning, the 20th day of August 2020. We have a lot to discuss today. But first, let's start from where we always begin, and this is with COVID-19 in numbers. A sizable number of deaths was reported yesterday.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
Yesterday, we saw cases.
You know, you go back a bit. Eric, what do you mean important deaths?
Okay, so.
I said important.
Yes, you did.
Huh?
Yes, you did. What do you mean important deaths? You mean
No. I said a significant number of deaths.
Or maybe that's unimportant deaths.
Maybe I do not know where I said important, but if I did,
What
that
I
was
know,
my mouth just going off.
No, what you meant to say, and I know this is what you meant to say, was that there are people who are well known who also passed away.
No. Actually, I have no idea who's well known, who's passed away.
I think you mean he meant a significant increase. You've not
Yes.
seen a large number like this in a few. In some
Significance in number, not
Yeah.
in personality.
Okay. You've explained it well. Now we can carry on.
Okay.
So that significant number is actually 19. 19 deaths recorded yesterday, bringing the total number of fatalities to 506. New cases yesterday were 397, taking the national tally of coronavirus cases to 31,015 in Kenya. So much is happening at the same time. We were supposed to, from all indicators, by this time or in a couple of weeks, the cases in Kenya were projected to reach 450,000. But there's so many things that are going on right now, okay? There's a shortage of reagents for testing. Contact tracing remains the biggest challenge. Weeks away from the projected 450,000 positive cases, the state labs are running on empty. According to reports, the government has made just about every possible mistake in handling the pandemic and is now doing under 5,000 tests a day. Despite spending 1.8 billion shillings on reagents, about 400,000 samples have so far been tested and just over 30,000 returning positive.
Hey.
That's what's happening in Kenya right now.
So contact tracing is basically just a story.
Forget it. It's just a word.
It's a
that you-
story.
It sounds nice in a report, but in terms of reality, zero. Window out.
So 402,000 cumulative tests,
Yes.
samples tested so
Samples
far.
tested. You can
Including
imagine if
when
one
you test
individual is getting
somebody.
3 or 4 tests,
Yeah.
right? How many people have actually been tested?
And how much have we spent again?
1.8 billion.
1.8 billion on reagents.
How much has,
on reagents alone? Forget about everything else. Okay.
And are we being told exactly where these reagents were taken to? Or is this one of these things we shouldn't
The
ask?
reagents. See, they went into these samples.
The reason why I ask is because then I'm going to ask the question. Of course, this is not that you should respond, but that just so that I may ask. What quantity of reagents do you need for one test? And
Right.
then,
How much does one reagent cost?
see?
And if 402,000 have been done, some simple mathematics we want to do and then see if it equals 1.8 billion.
Now, you see,
Is 1.8 billion for reagents alone, or is it for
Yes,
everything,
yes.
the entire
no,
kit?
no, no, just reagents.
1.8 billion shillings for reagents.
And then what do you? How much was it costing for everything else around the testing?
Let's
for
not
example,
go there because
the,
we want to start having headache this morning and we've not even
the
just wait
what's it
now.
called? The transportation module or something?
Yes, there are all these costs that are attached to it. But Eric, remember when we had this discussion with the CEO of Nairobi Hospital,
Yeah.
and he explained to us the costs. It's not just PPE.
Yeah.
It is a whole host of things that go into. If anytime you are admitted to a hospital or you have someone admitted and you look at the bill, it tells you exactly what you're paying for.
Yeah.
Glove, let's start there. Okay, mask in this case. Okay, then everything else. I think these guys will even charge you for oiling the trolley that brings those things.
At this rate. Miscellaneous fees.
Okay, very expensive, this COVID-19 treatment. And then, so what's our situation like? Is it that have we stopped the transmission of this? So it's in the community.
Look here.
Even Dr. Masi Mwangangi admits this thing is now in the community. And the way we have been conducting contact tracing, now we are looking to Africa. You know, we keep quoting these are the big organizations. We've been quoting WHO protocols and guidelines. Now we have come to Africa. CDC informs us that when it comes to contact tracing, when you have established community transmission, you need to relook your approach because the disease is within the community. And contact tracing, then, in terms of its merits, becomes weaker.
What on earth is she talking about?
Connie, was contact tracing ever not going to be in the community?
No. That's why I asked, what on earth is she talking about?
Who was she telling is what I want to know.
You know,
Had the
sometimes,
briefing yesterday.
sometimes you get the impression that even our top officials are a bit overwhelmed.
So you need to say something to
And
me,
you're
you know.
looking at this situation, what you know you should say, you know you can't say.
Yep.
because they are informed. They know.
They know.
They know. You can't say. So then what do you say? That's when you come up with this one.
Come up
here.
with Africa CD. You throw in Africa
You
CDC.
need to say something to make it
so,
sound like
you
you're on
know,
top of things now.
Yeah.
Since it's the
Global
community,
best practice.
do not be surprised if witch doctors and faith healers come into this discussion. Just wait and see.
Public participation while you're at it.
Then they're throwing community health workers.
Finish.
Okay,
It's
fine.
done.
All right, that's what's happening. Yeah.
Use the word protocol, guideline, and
World Health Organization.
World Health Organization, and then you can use the word triangulating to model
Bah,
epidemiological curve.
That's a lovely word. Lovely word. Lovely word. Triangulating.
Anybody who hears you say, yeah, this
So
is
here
what
it
they're
is.
talking about.
You may see that we have fewer numbers due to tests, but remember, a curve is not just the sample sizes or the numbers that we report daily. There are other studies triangulating to model our epidemiological curve.
Okay.
See, I've convinced you there. Or if
I
tell you that,
even know.
there are other triangulating epidemiological. So what we are doing is,
Then
an
you-
Africa CDC.
You look at
global
that whole
project.
thing, you understand the word Africa, you know the word curve. The other thing, triangulating.
We're
that's a good one now.
triangulating the curve, the model.
Okay. Nasema unajua, these technical explanations sometimes are a bit confusing, but I think that person is right.
Yeah.
Because you have no clue what they've just told you.
Like you say, in fact, that's what I was thinking.
Good.
I was confused, but in fact, now I understand.
Because there's science behind this. I mean, it's just
It's not just like that.
You know the scary
Not
thing?
trisex.
That if you know the scary thing about COVID, if you were to refer to COVID in those terms, is that in all honesty, if you look at the information that we have, the one thing you cannot tell, it doesn't matter how clever you are, is who could possibly have COVID.
Yep.
Let's start with those who have signs, the signs that typify it, we know, okay? Then go to the next level of people who are asymptomatic, okay? Then go to the level of people who are in neither, because they don't know and they don't care, they're neither, yes,
Just moving
yes.
about.
And then throw in how it is we relate and the connections we have. My friend, when
It's
people,
possible those 400,000 people
when
will
yes,
have
when
it now.
people talk about community transmission, that thing would be infinitely further than we think. Places like India have already said,
Yeah.
every time you hear a number, kindly double it. Then you may be approximating the truth. Okay? When a country says that about their own situation, they've understood
They've
it.
understood it.
Yes, and they've realized it. And that's why the ABC of trying to stay safe becomes so very important. Because since you don't know, just forget the vaccine for the time being. You just stay safe.
My goodness. So we just stay safe and then stop spending money then on this COVID.
No,
So we
the,
just do that.
the money has to be spent, especially when people get hospitalized. Remember the
Yeah,
burden.
So let's spend the money in hospitalization and everything else. So why are we spending all this?
But
money?
Eric, think about it. Self-isolation. The government is not spending money on you.
Well, yeah, but there's money being spent on testing.
There's money being spent on tests. There's always money being spent on testing. And testing,
Like now here is
people are also spending money on testing.
where they were doing some tests somewhere in Nairobi. Is that photo on the Nation? I think.
Yes, the testing was actually being done in Ruaraka.
Yeah.
Yes. The mother and the child picture, Ruaraka. Yes, the testing is being done, and we understand. But remember, it's not just the government that has shelled out money for this. Huh? We've had kind people, generous countries, good partners also helping us with some of these things.
Yeah.
Yes. So the testing, we understand, needs to be done. But in many cases, we also hear of people having to spend money on these tests.
Well, of course. Very many people who are going into any private facility are spending money. And it's in excess of 10,000 bob a pop. And then you test positive and you're told to bring your entire family. And each of them spends an equal amount. There's no sibling discount or family discount. It's not like school fees.
Ati mmekuja wangapi?
So kama ni wanne wacha
Okay, I
tunawapatia
give you discount.
25%.
That one, the last one won't pay.
Hawa watoto, what's the age? Okay. Hawa ni 50%.
It costs the same for everybody. Surely. Saying it's too much.
That's-
Globally, how are we looking?
Hey.
All right. right, so let's look at the global numbers. 22,578,851. Those are the cases that we're seeing. Let's just skip down quickly to the United States. We're now at 5,700,931. We saw a number of universities having to close in the United States yesterday because of the spread of COVID, and still looking at higher numbers of this transmission. We understand they've come out of the summer months, and the fall semester for a lot of these universities has just begun. But then they've taken the decision. Notre Dame University, for example, Duke University was another one of them. Harvard is also now closing because they have seen heightened cases of COVID, and they've resorted now to online learning. Some have decided not to open at all, and these are universities in the continental northeast generally that have decided to do this because of what they've seen. So it's even here, it's still with the testing. It's still being transmitted. You see, there's the whole idea of testing people who are in one area, they're not moving. But then there's this whole idea of people now have begun to move and are still spreading COVID with, institutions opening up after a holiday, after the summer, and this, that. So it's still something that they're trying to grapple with. And they're just going to have to continue, as from what we see. Okay. Brazil still recording high numbers of cases, as well as India. And like you said, this is what the official numbers are in India, with the likelihood that there are much, much more than that. Russia at almost 1 million cases now. South Africa inching closer and closer to 600,000 cases. A record 5,000 new cases in South Africa yesterday, and unfortunately now 12,423 deaths. Mexico still right up there, 707 deaths in the last 24 hours, and 5,792 new cases in Mexico. All right. The cases still continue to climb around the world, and we still see heightened cases in Australia. New cases still being recorded in South Korea, with just one death, though, over the last 24 hours. But it still continues to rise. Madagascar, 14,074 cases. And it would be interesting to see where the trials are for the COVID organic, because as from the last time we saw that they were doing these trials for an injectable form of this. And then after the cases then took a surge, everything kind of went quiet. So it'll be interesting to see where they are now with this.
Okay.
All right.
So let's take a break at 19 minutes after 6. Let's look at the weather and then start to review the newspaper headlines this morning. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, live streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Good morning.
...24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
As the world changes, so do we. We adapt to our situations to bring out the best in us. This is why the Standard Group and Oxford University Press East Africa have partnered to bring you Tutor Summer Online. For just 10 shillings, you have unlimited access to the reputable source of revision materials conveniently. All you have to do is log into tutorsoma.standardmedia.co.ke and make the most of the time for all students, including candidates for both primary and secondary schools. So, as we stay home, we keep dreams of future successes alive while making homeschooling an achievable reality together.
All right, in Nairobi, you're looking at mostly cloudy conditions. Winds quite high today. Highs of 23 and lows of 14, and those partly cloudy conditions will continue throughout today. Eldoret, clear skies at 13 degrees, highs of 20 and lows of 13, with thunderstorms expected for later on in the day. Nakuru weather this morning is partly cloudy at 14 degrees, thunderstorms in the forecast later with highs of 22 and lows of 13. Clear skies in Eldoret at 13 degrees this morning. It'll change later though. Thunderstorms are predicted for the afternoon with highs of 20 and lows of 13. It's 20 degrees in Kisumu and mostly cloudy this morning. A chance of rain early on with highs of 27 and lows of 19. Kakamega is mostly cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 24 and lows of 16 today, with showers expected through most parts of today. All right, let's take a look into Malindi, where it's partly cloudy at 24 degrees, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Chance of rain. Showers are imminent in Mombasa, currently at 23 degrees. We'll see highs then of 29 and lows of 25. Let's take a look then into Kampala, where it's mostly cloudy at 19 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 18, with showers expected later. Dar es Salaam, clear skies this morning at 22. A chance of rain early on this morning, highs of 29 and lows of 22. Johannesburg is quite chilly this morning at 3 degrees. We'll see highs of 16 and lows of 3. Lagos is partly cloudy at 25 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 23. Taking a look then into Paris, 22 and clear skies this morning. A few clouds here and there with highs of 33 and lows of 22 today. It's partly cloudy in London at 20 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 18, with sunny conditions throughout the day. And finally for now, in New York, clear skies at 24 degrees on Wednesday night, waking up to a sunny morning, highs of 24 and lows of 18.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's go to the big proverb of the day.
Yes, let us. It is the calm and silent water that drowns a man. If you notice, many of these proverbs seem to have been written by men because the reference point is always a little gender insensitive. Yes. So, why don't I make it gender sensitive? It is only the calm and silent water that drowns a person.
So many interpretations for this.
I tend to...
Still waters run deep.
yes, I tend to lean towards political interpretations in such matters. I find them easier to come by and easier to understand.
Like, for example, for instance?
If indeed you find a situation where all the arms of government are in agreement, still waters, rest assured the Mwananchi is going to suffer.
Someone is going to drown.
Someone is going to drown. And in this case, many people will drown. When
Any Swahili translation of that?
No, I tried. But then again, you see, my knowledge of Kiswahili is a bit limited. Yes. So.
Is it?
A little false humility in the morning surely should be allowed.
Hey, how would you translate this proverb in Swahili or in any other language, Kenyan language?
Consider what you said, still waters run deep. But given an African twist, we know water.
Maji.
Inaweza kukuangamiza. So.
I'm sure someone will come up with one.
Yes, we've
I
thrown
know
it
in
out
the
there.
Swahili proverbs, they come with some nice vocabulary. You're going to learn some vocabulary.
Like wadfa.
Like wadfa.
Okay. All right.
You find this Swahili vocabulary in proverbs or in the Bible?
Deep.
Yes.
All right.
When you hear someone using some of these words, you're like,
Where?
you're a preacher.
Or you have that inclination.
Yeah.
Your vocabulary gives you away.
Gives you away. It just tells you, hey, someone tells. For example, when is the last time you heard someone using the word maadamu in a sentence? Mtafuteni Bwana, maadamu atapatikana. This is in the Bible. You're like, all right, so now, on an ordinary day, would you say, nimekuja maadamu? But there are people who use some of these musamiatis. Ndiposa. nimekuja ndiposa.
And it's grammatically correct. Absolutely.
See those calm waters you're talking about? I'm floating in them now.
Now, on to an interesting headline. Two things. And all around Lake Nakuru.
Yep.
These floods, which had just about the most negative press you could ever think of, have a silver lining in Lake Nakuru. Two silver linings, of course. One of them to the detriment of another lake not very far away. Let's start with Lake Bogoria, known for its flamingos. Because of this flooding, the flamingos have decided Lake Nakuru can work for them. And they've flown to Lake Nakuru. But of significance, because of the flooding, people who live around the area of Lake Nakuru, some of whom have farms, and some of whom have actually been living as squatters in nearby schools and churches, have suddenly found that with this flooding, they now have fish. So they're actually learning to fish, and they're actually learning to trade in fish, something they've never done before.
Fish are plenty.
Plenty of it. And because this is something new to them, many of them took the view, well, they didn't have boats, to simply go to Naivasha, which isn't really very far from Nakuru, to find people who actually know how to ply this trade. So around the lake, and those who inhabited it, they have found a new trade. It's called fishing, something they've never done before.
Wow. Okay.
That's a nice silver lining.
Now, so what's happened to Lake Bogoria? So the flamingos have moved.
Flamingos, which were aplenty in Lake Bogoria, have decided to be aplenty
In Nakuru.
in Lake Nakuru.
They're also looking for the fish too.
So Lake Nakuru is aplenty
Of
with
flamingo.
and fish.
And fish.
So you need to ask yourself, do the flamingos actually eat fish? Or are they also going to learn with the inhabitants of
What do flamingos eat?
They eat the little bugs and
algae and-
mites
Yes.
and algae and
that's
other
what
vegetation.
that's
of
what
the
they
lake.
feed on.
Yeah.
And those who study these things also explains the color, the pink color that you see in flamingos. Pink.
I reckon you like this bird.
Pink.
Oh, you like pink. All right. Okay.
I read somewhere that flamingos are not actually pink. That this is a reflection of whatever I've done. I just didn't understand that explanation.
I actually grew up in Nakuru, and there was actually a bookshop, a Christian bookshop, that sold flamingo feathers. Well, the thing made out of flamingo feathers. And if my memory serves me right, they were pink.
Ah.
So unless you're telling me there's another bird that has pink feathers.
Oh,
And it was actually called Flamingo Bookshop, believe it or not.
Wow.
Nice. Speaking of lakes, Lake Baringo. I've seen stories about Lake Baringo.
Whoa. Not pleasant.
Not
The
pleasant.
flooding there has caused havoc, to put it mildly.
Yep. So people have been displaced because the lake has done what Lake Victoria has done.
What Lake Victoria is known to do, yes, that has happened. But the story of Lake Victoria is particularly interesting. You know, it isn't just flooding, actually. It's not just your typical everyday flooding. The last time there was this occurrence that we've seen in Lake Victoria was in 1947. The people who liken it to what happened in 62, what they called the reign of Uhuru. Okay, meaning it was a reign that ushered in Uhuru.
independence.
Yes. But this isn't just water going in, but it's water going out. And this happened in 1947. So essentially what it means, if you go to Lake Naivasha, you'll hear similar stories, and you'll even see structures that were submerged, completely submerged, and have remained submerged. So they tell you it's like the waters are claiming back land that was previously theirs. That's really what it's doing. And it does so every so often.
Okay. Speaking of meals and what people are eating, then let's look at this one before we take a look at traffic. How about a hot meal of crickets and worms? It is saving children's lives. There's a story here on page 10 of the Standard, and it talks about women who are gathering under acacia trees to shield themselves from the searing heat as the children cling onto their laps crying for breast milk. One of them is demonstrating how porridge is made by mixing edible insect-enriched flour with water to make an even paste before bringing it to boil while stirring. So, you know, this is a story about some villages in Kerio Valley where hundreds of mothers are congregating to receive enriched food because of the rampant and severe cases of malnourishment of children under 5 locally. A baseline survey commissioned by the World Vision Kenya in August last year found that more than 30% of children under 5 in Kerio Valley suffer stunted growth occasioned by severe malnutrition, which led to rampant high morbidity and mortality rates. So someone has come up with a very unique thing. And this is Dr. Caroline Kipkoech, an entomologist from the JKUAT, yes, who came up with a greenhouse model through World Vision to breed and rear edible insects to be used in enriching porridge for the children. She says that they wanted a sustainable and effective way of alleviating malnutrition in the region, and within a week, locals had collected the insects ready to be bred. These ones include black soldier fly that have been pictured here. Is those fake insects?
Well, if you think that is something for you to sort of like digest, pun intended, of course,
Of course.
then you should think of what is often referred to as a species of the emperor moth. My friend, it's called the mopane worm. It's a caterpillar, and it is the largest edible caterpillar.
How big is it?
As in terms of how many kilometers?
Size. Yeah.
Where is Nduh?
How long, how heavy?
Well, let's start with how hairy.
Ew.
It's 120 millimeters.
What?
It's a big caterpillar. It's a delicacy in the southern part of Africa.
120 millimeters, or 1.2 centimeters.
Yes, it's actually sold, dried, fried.
Okay.
Yes, but it's hairy in the funny sense of the word, meaning you also see spikes coming out of the body. And it has lovely colors, orange, yellow, black, mixed nicely.
When you cook now, all that hair goes and
Yes, it becomes black,
very good.
hairy, thorny.
Very good. I think it sounds delicious.
The things people eat, you know, you shouldn't turn your nose and twist
I'm
your
not.
mouth
I'm not.
at people's preferred cuisine.
No, I'm not at all.
The reference here is not to, should we say, the beauty or the perceived beauty of this particular
It's the
creature.
nutritional.
It's the nutritional value.
Right.
And if this is working for the children of West Pokot,
Then why not?
then kudos to the JKUAT lecturer.
Remember those Yunya Machoma eating natives. Please remember that they're part of the world where people don't eat cows. Just so that we understand.
True.
They may see you as savages.
Yes. So
21 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic and then continue with a look at the big headlines of the day. Good morning.
Traffic.
Okay, approach Syokimau with caution this morning. There was an accident earlier on, and the wreckage is still on the road So, as you're coming towards the SGR, you need to be very careful. Just past some filling station and waiting for emergency services to do that. It happened earlier on, so I guess those folks are just not awake yet. But that needs to be sorted out, and it's going to affect traffic on that road already. Mombasa Road is likely to be chock-a-blocked before long, if it hasn't already happened. Namanga Road, heading towards Kitengela, is moving along fine, but as you come to Mombasa Road, you will get stuck, folks, because of what's happening here. So approach with caution. We'll look at other parts of the city. Coming off Mombasa Road and getting into the CBD should not be too terrible. Right now, it's looking good. Where else? No? Okay, looks good for now, guys. Everywhere that we look. We're going to look out into Kisumu and Mombasa in a short while and see what traffic looks like there. Look at Nakuru as well. And shout outs if you see anything that people should know about as we get out this morning. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. We want to keep it moving. It is Thursday, after all.
Spice FM, Malindi. Pure golden sound and good talk. 94.4 Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
That's 23 minutes to 7 o'clock. Let's
Mornings.
are the big headlines of the day.
Senators go gaga over Matiang'i. That is the headline, and then going into the story that's on page 9 in the Standard. Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i yesterday appeared before the Senate over the arrest of 3 legislators on Monday in a session that saw journalists kicked out of the proceedings. Senators Cleophas Malala Kakamega, Steve Lelegwe Samburu, and Christopher Langat Bomet were dramatically seized by police and later driven to their home counties to answer to various charges just hours to a crucial vote in the House. And we know the story that took on there. Now, the Senate, through Speaker Ken Lusaka, had summoned the CS and his top security officials, Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutiambai, and Director of Criminal Investigations Boss George Kinoti, over the arrests. Yesterday's meeting was led by the Committee on National Security Chair Yusuf Haji, who ordered journalists out. A source who attended the hearing but cannot be named because they are not authorized to speak to the media, and some of the senators fell over themselves to curry favor with Dr. Matiang'i, some of who had only a few days back threatened to sanction him for snubbing the Senate. And they now praised the CS for doing a good job and supporting him. The IG confirmed that the investigations were still ongoing on the allegations made against the 3 senators. There were no details given on the said allegations, despite repeated requests, according to Minority Whip Mutula Kilonzo. The senator, who was among the 17 in attendance, said the committee ordered the CS and the IG to table a written report by the end of yesterday, as the officers appeared without one and gave oral responses.
But they were falling over themselves.
Yeah, to say that he's doing a good job. And, everything is, according to the source, who cannot be named because they're not allowed to speak to the media.
Okay. Power. Let's play.
Page 6 of the Star. Bribery claims rock Senate in revenue sharing formula standoff.
Are you surprised?
No, I'm just reading what is it.
Oh, okay.
The Star has learned that some senators pocketed millions of shillings after secretly negotiating with the state to change their stances. Now, this particular plot thickens because counties have also come into this, because apparently the war chest that is being referred to here was strengthened by monies from the counties.
So counties have also contributed.
Yes, and they even mentioned figures. Some counties reportedly contributed 10 million shillings, to secure the support of the 6 senators in rejecting the formula.
Right.
Okay.
6.
Well, you don't need all of them. There were some who were already firm in a certain position, and there are some whom you felt you could sway. So, the bulk of this money
So
that
the
we
ones
speak
who are
of,
firm have been bought with something you can't buy.
yes, chances are they have. Let's put it this way: they have been allowed to see the light, and it's a light that permanently shines on your face, so you cannot for an even second. Okay, but the Star learned that badly needed a rejection of the government back revenue sharing proposal. Okay. Now this is a government official who was reporting. Okay. He sought ways to ensure that the 18 counties that were seen to be losing what they have been allocated to date to defeat the government formula. Now, all that this means is that this particular plot is just thickening. If these allegations are in any way true, unfortunately, given the background and the history of our legislators, not necessarily the Senate, this story to any reader, even for the first time, is bound to be more believable than unbelievable.
The scales are tilting on the truth side.
Yes.
Because you've heard it from various quarters, and it's not the first time that you hear of people being bought in the corridors and the toilets of Parliament,
or people seeing such an opportunity to sort of like feel like this is an opportunity for me to actually make some money.
And the unfortunate bit is why you would expect that somebody would sit down and take money to vote a certain way.
Ask the question perhaps this way.
Actually, even the bigger one. If it's a case where you're talking about a certain private organization or private lobby trying to push through some law that will favor the industry, then you can say, all right, so this is lobbying, and there was some form of bribery, to just convince these guys to even listen to them. Inducement, right? Government, we're talking about state actually coughing out some cash. This is absolutely insane.
Well, there are those
why would a county government contribute money to bribe a senator so that the senator
insane?
can vote in a certain
the
way?
idea of it or the actual reality of it?
The idea, the reality, everything about it.
Look at it both ways. If I stand to lose 1 billion shillings and all I'm required is to give 10 million so that I can get the 1 billion
shillings.
Or if I'm likely to lose 1 billion and I can retain the status quo by giving 10 million. If you take the view also that what we think is public service is actually private enterprise, then it becomes easier to understand. So essentially, the senators are elected so that they can go into personal business for themselves.
Forget about oversight and all.
Oversight is there because they tell you about it. But now, this one, you suddenly realize, okay, where was oversight here? And there are too many words. Where this matter is concerned, too many words and too many. So you even begin to get the impression that the moving back and forth and us moving into the 10th session has to do with some people realize, wait a moment.
Bado.
You mean to tell me there's this amount of money being...
no way.
We can even go to 20.
No. I think this thing, even if it goes to... Yes, exactly. Because the longer it stays, the longer you have to be spoken to, and the longer you... The greater the opportunity.
The more buoyant you can
become.
become.
So I said no.
Yeah.
This, once in a lifetime opportunity. This is a delightful, beautiful cash cow.
And we shall milk it to the nth.
Kabza. So I think if we were to go with that thinking, then the understanding would be we are not going to see the end of this soon. And if we do, it therefore means that some really lucrative understanding has been arrived at.
Reminds me of a house that starts with the W. W-H-O-R-E, house.
Okay.
W. Yes.
That's exactly what it is.
It actually, you have actually hit the nail. There's nothing proverbial here. You hit the nail on the head.
Hey.
Yep. Walk in.
Okay. It's rather unfortunate, this one. It is completely out of even thinking that anything could happen. So there's a poll that was conducted in Old Town. Remember, Old Town had been locked down during at the height of the peak of the pandemic in Mombasa. So the Muslim for Human Rights group called Muhuri conducted a poll, and it shows that a majority of the population in Old Town does not believe that there is coronavirus. They think, it's fake news. 58.6% of the residents of Old Town, one of the first areas to be declared COVID-19 hotspots in Kenya, do not believe coronavirus is real. 41.3% believe that the virus is real, but it does not exist in Old Town, it doesn't exist in Kenya, or anywhere else in Africa. Corona iko lakini corona ya wazungu iko China. Some residents told a team of researchers that they believe the virus's impact and presence in Kenya was greatly exaggerated. They believe the disease, if it exists, cannot infect them.
Think about it for a single second. if you were to give priority to things that should occupy your mind, and you're an ordinary citizen,
Yep.
tell me, where do you think coronavirus would fit in? Because what do you think is the primary concern? How to live one day at a time. Food, the basics, all right? Now, disease is something that you deal with only when you must. Health-seeking behavior is determined by not just the disease, but the severity.
Yeah.
Unless I'm threatened by death, literally, that isn't going to happen. Because, in all honesty, it is not a priority.
No.
So now, if you go to Old Town and you're saying you have a situation where the majority of people who live here are what we call ordinary citizens. A good number of them were people who are employed by the auxiliary services provided by, say, transportation from the port. A good number of them, the fishing industry in Mombasa is really not that big, to be honest with you. It's greater elsewhere, like in places like Lamu. And then you see, when you talk of employment, there's the subsector which that unemployment also creates. So if one sector suffers, then there's this ripple effect.
Yeah.
You think this person is actually going to actually prioritize COVID?
They don't really care.
When you look at the symptoms of COVID, those are symptoms that we're accustomed to. We know. So there are other explanations for COVID.
So is this we can say that this person knows that there is COVID, but they're just choosing to ignore it.
I'm telling you,
because the response here is somebody saying that they do not believe coronavirus exists. And if it does, those that believe, yes, it exists, but nowhere near Africa. It's not in Africa. It's in other parts of the world.
Eric, I want you to consider for a single second HIV. I will always go back to HIV. South Africa. The topmost leaders, it wasn't one president, two, and their attitude and their actions towards HIV. There are those who say that what they did damned the disease and put people in South Africa on a really perilous path. They publicly declared that these things are really not a big issue. This HIV is what? One said, cold shower, you're sorted out. Another one, yes. Another one, this thing is not really. Now, when you look at the effect, because this is a leader, and they've told you, you may not think so, but people actually tend to listen and believe what leaders tell them. More so if it is inclined towards what you yourself would like to believe.
Yeah.
If it comes close to what you want to hear.
If you believe that this...
But now here's the case, CT.
Yes.
By the time Old Town was being put on lockdown, 39 people had died.
Yes, they had.
In Old Town. Right?
Yes.
So it's not that you don't know somebody who has died. Actually, a prominent herbalist and retired Islamic preacher was among the first to be infected.
Yes.
And
So
he died.
what did they believe
So
that these
people
folks
knew
were dying from?
that so-and-so,
So they explained.
uncle for corona, and then you say,
It's not here.
Yeah. But you also remember what Professor Boga was telling us in Kwale. And when he goes to the mosques and what the people and the sheikhs are telling him. Corona in Kuja, it's your day, man. Heri ya Mungu.
Your time's up.
It's your time, that's why you're dying. So that basically there's that attitude issue. And there's also looking at, so why were we locked down anyway? Were restricted from moving, coming in or out. Our businesses were closed, and now we are seeing numbers rising. We don't see this happening in other parts. And only Old Town and Isli were locked down during Ramadan. This has nothing to do with corona. So all these other theories find space.
When you look at the population density of the two places you've mentioned, they become epicenters, and they can easily become very, very big epicenters. But then again, this is where now communication and explaining and making people understand. You think that by announcing it a couple of times in the radio, you've explained it. You haven't. Because even anything that's on radio in the media is competing with other information which is in the media.
And in daily life.
Yes.
11 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember now, let's talk about Captain Cargo. kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. KARGO, and this is the information portal by the Kenya Ports Authority. Yesterday we had started looking at some processes that would help CT Muga import generators from the UK to Mombasa.
Right. So we know that already your generators have left the UK, CT. And at this point, your commercial consignment, which is destined for Kenya. So you get what is called an IDF. As at yesterday, you had already received this import declaration form from KRA, and then you paid the necessary charges. Now, your shipping agent then would send your cargo manifest to KRA. Now, on the manifest, this is now everything that is listed on that. What you're importing, the names of your business, the payments that you would have made. And so now this manifest would be then distributed to KPA and the partner government agencies who needed to be involved in this process. Okay, so today we're going to go through and probably we're going to get your generators to you today. And we're going to find out what Captain Cargo then would like you to know in terms of the process and what's happening. So today, with all these generators will be, and you would be in big business.
Thank you.
Mashika.
Yes, I've held on to it tightly.
All right. Great. Let's take a quick break and then we'll be back shortly.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Continue looking at big headlines in the day.
So now children have no stake in divorced property according to the law. We've seen previously that when it comes to divorce, children would be used as, unfortunately, the bait or the scapegoat in these disputes between spouses. A court has ruled that children are not entitled to share their parents' matrimonial property after divorce. The finding was reached in a case where a woman named LNN in court papers wanted to include her children in a lawsuit in which she was seeking her rightful stake of what the couple owns. LNN had parted ways with her husband, referred to as PKN, last year. After 15 years of marriage, she argued that their wealth would be shared equally and that the court should reserve at least 50% of it to take care of their two children. The children's share, she said, was to pay for their education and general upkeep. PKN did not defend the case. But family court judge George Duju ruled that although a living spouse can bequeath his or her determined share of matrimonial property after it had been divided by the court, he or she cannot ask that the children be provided for during division of the property. Before, it's always been the case that because children are involved, then you would say we would need a larger share of this to take care of their education or future expenses.
Yeah, but not directly in their name.
No, still in the name of the presiding spouse, as it were.
That's it.
And that's the thing, because usually children would be used to say, look, I still have these children and I'm taking care of them, so allow this property to be then in my name so that I can continue taking care of them. But judge says now, no, you can't do that anymore.
But what they seem to have done is not denied the children, but simply said, get divorced first.
Yes.
Share the property.
And then
we
use
consider the
that to
children.
take care of the children.
Yes.
Yes. But you must split. But it will not be used then to determine who gets the property. Whereas previously it was, but not anymore.
Was that the case previously?
Yeah.
According to that article,
Many times.
that article actually
According
seems
to
to
this.
imply that.
Yeah.
And also remember, there's this case which is also being challenged with regards to children being left only or solely in the hands of the mother. It's also being challenged. People are saying that there are men who actually would make better providers.
Yeah, we saw this a couple of days ago.
So they're challenging this thing that has been taken as a status quo where these things are, where such matters are concerned.
Yeah.
But in my mind, it provides clarity. Because when you throw in children, when that messy process is still going on, all you do is muddy the waters further. Clear one thing. Then talk about the
The
children.
divorce is between the two people,
Yes.
right? Husband and wife. So let's first of all clear the husband and wife.
Let's sort this
and
thing
the,
out.
and the property
What
then
is-
is shared between husband and wife.
Yes.
Because the other issue that the reason why I keep asking, was that the case really? I thought the case was not necessarily saying that because you have children, therefore you get this, but you put in and say, these are your obligations, right? Child upkeep and all, these are the obligations, whether during divorce or during separation or during whatever. This is the obligation. So you have an obligation, for instance, to pay, to provide for this family. You have an obligation to pay school fees, not an obligation to pay for future school fees. Because this appears to be what the prayer was here, that set aside 50% of this wealth, first of all, to go into a third entity called child, and this will be in the child's interest for the child's upkeep. And then now the other 50% divide between the couple.
When it was a sharing of the spoils, as it were, for divorce, usually the reason as to why a certain party should get a certain amount, the children were used as that reason, right? So now it was always, okay, so you get a divorce and then it would be split 75-25 for whatever reason, or whatever amount, and the children would be taken as consideration as to why that amount was being given, with whomever the children were going to be. But now what the judge is saying is, forget it. We're going to split it how we see fit. The children can come in later. Because it has always been used as an excuse as to why one particular spouse would get more. And now they're saying, we're not going to use that reason anymore. If you want to leave something for the upkeep of your children, you split first. And then now you can go ahead and share.
Yeah, and then let's now come to individual responsibility for the child, which can be another conversation.
That would be a totally different case now.
And not in divorce court, but now in the children's
In
court
children's
or in
court.
family court,
Or in-
whatever.
yeah.
What I found interesting, even as we're thinking about this, it's a question that comes to mind. It has always been assumed that in a matter such as this one, it's the man who ends up footing the bill for the upkeep of the children.
Yeah.
Do our laws take into consideration the person who's actually earning more money, or the person who actually has more money?
It's unfortunate. It really is
It would be
unfortunate.
interesting to find out.
Because the converse has been what has been in the limelight most recently, the belief then would be that the woman earns less. But in in many cases, which never come to the surface, it's not in terms of money that they're looking for, but in terms of responsibility, because these are your children. Do something for them.
Do something. Coming to the top of the hour, coming to 7 o'clock CT, remind us today's proverb.
Well, today's proverb is really a simple and straightforward. It is the calm and silent water that drowns a person.
The calm and silent water that drowns a person. Any close translation of this in Swahili or your other language that's not English, please let us know. But Twitter is on Spice FM KE on Twitter. Or you can also go on to Instagram, Spice FM KE, or also Facebook, where we are live streaming the show, Spice FM KE. Keep it right here. This is A Situation, Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll continue to look at the big story of the day in the next hour. Good morning.
Spice up your life. traffic.
Okay, traffic is flowing well from the SGR in Athi River, but then you get towards Siokimau and the SGR and it comes to a standstill. It's just a normal moving on. That accident, thankfully, has been cleared out, so we should be fine. All right, looking at other parts of the city right now, Nairobi specifically, Namanga Road also looking good. Getting towards Thika Road, the service lanes looking pretty good as well. The main highway is crawling along as you get then towards the Utali Drift and then out towards Muthaiga Corner, and the Pangani Underpass thereafter is looking good. It's flowing very well today. Coming out of Westlands past the 87 and then towards the Westlands roundabout as you pass then the James Gishuru Junction, you're looking good. It's flowing very well, not a bumper-to-bumper situation as yet. Let's take a look into Mombasa, where it's looking good now, where we had the problems of the bridge being constructed past Mariakani. It looks okay now as you're getting into the city, or getting into the town. Shouldn't be too bad as you then approach Moi Avenue. We'll look at Kisumu and other parts of the city in a short while. Not to forget, something jumps out at you, let us know. Spice of MKE. That's on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation
It's
Room.
2 minutes after
the
7.
only
Thank you
way
very
to
much for
start
tuning
your
in
day.
to The Situation Room this morning. It's on Spice FM on 94.4 Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, Njeri 90.9, and Malindi 97.7. Now that the gentleman called William Samoei Arap Ruto, PhD, is on the headline of The Nation and The Standard, let's just look at this story.
Okay.
So The Standard has one angle. The Spectator is the headline, and it says, big office, no power. For months, the DP had dismissed reports that he is a stranger in government, but now he generously shares his frustrations on social media and at tea parties that he's holding at his home. It's the only platform that he has to speak to us. Social media and tea parties. So the Standard basically is leading this thing. This man has now been reduced into a spectator in his own government. He is fighting from the periphery, pushed away from the project launches and purged from the center of government. The DP is charting a lonely path to 2022. The shadows of his failed predecessors trailing him. He has transformed his official current residence into a combination of a prayer sanctuary for his arduous journey, a donation center for his political funds, an innovation hub for his hustler nation, and his political mobilization capital. An all-in-one residence. We have not said that it's also where he resides with his family.
It's also that.
Yeah, you'd assume, this is an obvious thing. Yeah, it's also a restaurant where he eats. All those things. Yeah. So, is the DP fighting from the periphery? What's this Nation headline?
Also, the Nation headline is that Ruto's ready for the poll, but who will he partner with? It seems like he doesn't have anybody that he will partner with. Waiguru Mudavadi and Jumwa have been touted as his running mates.
Waiguru Mudavadi and?
Jumwa, Aisha Jumwa. Why are you laughing? Don't think she's a...
Okay, go ahead. Just read.
So there's a big dilemma. Unfortunately. Keen to ensure his first stab at the presidency is successful, Deputy President William Ruto's team is seeking a person who commands a large political constituency. And the question is,
who commands?
A large political constituency.
And the third name you mentioned was?
Aisha Jumwa.
Okay.
All right.
Doesn't correlate?
Well, if a contradiction can be considered a correlation, yes.
This is one glaring one. So let's look at the details of that just a little bit more. Let me tickle your fancy just a little bit more, right? So, the question is, who will it be? Another crucial decision the team is grappling with is the party to use for this presidential race. So will it be Jubilee or will it not? DP Ruto was initially said to be keen on a running mate from the Mount Kenya region or Western, but his targets have been decamped, lost national influence, or fallen out of grace or favor. The Nation understands that the DP's Technical Advisory Committee, TAC, has already given its opinion on possible candidates. Former Kakamega Senator Boni Khalwale said the negotiations and consultations were ongoing, but no name had been settled on yet. And this is why. Because we are trying to dismantle ethnic mobilization,
All right.
having chosen to drive a national agenda, region of birth for the suitable candidate is not a strength. So far, the position has not been offered to anyone. In Mount Kenya, Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru's name had been fronted before she fell out with the DP and established herself on the handshake side, right next to his bitter foe, Orange Democratic Movement leader Raila Odinga. Former Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Njeri, who also recently formed the Service Party, has also been mentioned. Analysts, however, think that Mr. Njeri would not be of much help to the DP if President Kenyatta stamps his authority. In Western, the DP was said to have been eyeing Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi. So rife were the talks of a Ruto Musalia ticket that the surprise resignations of Barak Muluka and Eliud Owalo from ANC were quickly linked to a bid by the DP to woo the former Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Mudavadi has since rubbished these claims.
So this is just political commentary. Is there anything new that story has offered?
Still looking for a running mate.
Well,
He's looking for a running mate.
we're
That's
talking
it.
about cats dead, thrown on the table, changing conversation. Do you really honestly think that people who are in this particular political arena, you think their movements are actually occasioned or are dominated by a series? Because what you've read is a series of uncertainties.
Yep.
This might happen, it might not happen. And then some
this could
then
happen,
absolute improbables.
And somebody's telling you that, we
The
want-
thinking
thinking.
behind this is, where they're right is that you're looking for somebody who has an appeal.
national appeal.
No, it doesn't start there. It honestly doesn't start there. Somebody with our politics, unless it has changed significantly, you want someone who has an appeal in their backyard, because that is like a done thing. You know this guy comes with these votes. Then you think of other things. And by the way, this national appeal, there'll be no national appeal if there is no appeal that the national can see from your own backyard. You actually think Kenyans are going to start voting for you when they can see your own people aren't voting for
And
you?
voting for
Which
you.
ones?
Which Kenyans?
Which ones? They will even say, but his own people don't seem to think very highly of him. So why should we? Why should we? And they know him better, or they know her better. So even as politicians try to throw this Kenyanese at us of, well, we're not looking at the ethnicity. Of course, we are looking at we have to look at the ethnicity. In terms of votes, our demographics in terms of the population in this country is ethnicized. We know how many people from this region. We know that is the arithmetic you must do. So you want to look for the people who have some form of command of those votes.
Is it possible then to get somebody who does not have that direct linkage with the ethnic tribe?
Like who, for instance?
For example, remember when we had a conversation here with Dr. Willie Mutunga, the former CJ, and he was saying, he's Willie Mutunga. He has risen professionally. He has worked professionally and in academia. Never really gone to his backyard and said, I'm Kamba. When he became CJ and he started this program of building courts around the country, a Kamba delegation would come to him and say, you know what, now we need one court.
We should
Upper
run
Kwetu.
for- yeah.
Upper Kwetu, we need a court so that you can
Yes.
start by building. And he said, look, come on, guys. Look, we are building courts around the country. It's according to need, not according to that. If Dr. Willie Mutunga were to vie for president today, would we start looking at how many Kambas does he?
Actually, yes, we would.
Why?
And believe me, he'd be disqualified on those grounds, just those grounds alone, because they'll feel, but this man has no roots.
How can we rise to a level where we're looking at somebody not from that?
But must we rise to the occasion? You see, what
We
makes
should,
us
I ought.
no,
I thought.
not really, Eric. The negative ethnicity that we have is what makes us think along those
For
lines.
example, think about the voting in Nairobi.
Yes.
All right. How many people looked at how many? What is Sakaja? Is Sakaja Luya? Is he Kalenjin? What is Sakaja?
I really don't know.
How many people would consider? So what is his background? He got over 800,000 votes in Nairobi. Look. So this man we know is Luo, Dr. Evans Kidero. Were people voting for him looking at how many Luos that he's going to get?
Eric, to be honest with you, the reality of our politics, if you do not have the support of the ethnicity that you belong to, just for starters, that is ground zero for you, and you think you're going to garner support from some other community, well, I mean, I wait to see it.
I accept it's a reality today. I'm just wondering, what will it take for us to start looking at people differently?
No,
must it be a
you go
prerequisite?
beyond it. You
Right.
see, what you're asking is, this way you start off, but you have to go beyond it.
How do we get there?
Then let's study Sonko.
Uh-huh.
Let's study Sonko, because he has definitely straddled that divide perfectly.
But what was the thing that he did that appealed to people? The thing that he did was then he was able to touch on their needs, not where they're
Yes.
from.
So people
The
didn't
things
see
that they
him as
needed
a
to
Kamba. He was
know.
never seen as a Kamba
He
by
was
the
seen-
voter.
He was seen as a
Sonko.
savior. In many cases, he was seen as a savior.
And that's what I'm saying. If we look at the politics of Nairobi, it's not really tribal. Well, in the background, in the arithmetic, they're always counting on how many Kikuyus can you convince, how many. But in the appeal and in very many people's
Minds.
thinking, you're not looking at. So is this man going to get the support of the? So Sonko didn't have that. I would also posit that Dr. Evans Kidero did not have that when he was campaigning and when he was getting elected. I would also say the same about, Sonko.
Dr.
first time.
Gedero had ODM behind him. Now you see, ODM is a multifaceted entity. Yes.
Is Western.
Yes, it is.
At that
It
point-
brings in very many parties together. And then remember, within ODM, you had not within ODM. You had NASA, then you had ODM, then you had all the other people who are in NASA.
At that point, it was called
It was called COD. Was
yes.
it? Hey man, these things are many.
minus Musalia.
It was called. It was called. Sorry, my apologies to the listeners. It was called. The NASA then was called
It was
COD.
there. The NASA
Yes,
then was called
COD.
because Musalia was not in it.
So he had that advantage. There was this gathering. You see, you start off, you get together, then you have one huge body. So it's not that it isn't being done. It is. Jubilee is the same thing. You start off with your ethnic backgrounds, then you come together, then you bring in all, you absorb
in the
all
others.
these other people. Look at even Kanu as it currently stands. It's the one party that actually has officials right around the country. But you start off somewhere and then you gather all these people. What you're asking is if we can change the way we think. Yes, we can. And the areas like our big towns have shown us clearly. We have MCAs in this particular town, in this metropolis of ours, who in terms of ethnicity don't have the numbers, but they're MCAs.
They're MCAs.
Which means the ethnicity was not an issue. It is this person. And the governor himself proves that point very, very adequately. He's a man whose appeal actually cuts across that ethnicity completely.
Yeah, because guess what? There's certain needs that the people have that cut across ethnicity.
Yes.
There's certain needs that you have when you're hungry, when you're looking for shelter, when you're looking for education and medical facilities and things like that. You're not going to think, where is this person from that they have this need? You're not going to think, where is this person
Exactly
from?
the last thing on your mind.
Exactly. When you step into a school that you're looking for admission for your child, or when you don't have those school fees, but here is an individual who made the promise and who had proven, whether it was from his personal funds or whatever, that he was in a position to help out people and lift them up from one status to the next in whatever capacity. And it cut across all of that. So I think that at some point, when you actually are able to see leaders or those in a governorship position who will deliver a certain thing beyond where you're from, then you realize, okay, hold on. Then it really doesn't matter where this individual is from.
If we take
It's
a walk
about what they're able to deliver.
If we take a walk down memory lane, Nairobi was precisely that. Upon independence, people stood all. I mean, the parliamentary seats that we had in Nairobi, it was a nice mishmash of people from right across the so-called ethnic divide of this country. Meaning, people just voted for the individual.
It's true, and you look at it really, because with the 800,000 votes that Governor Sonko got in Nairobi, I think it would be very difficult to say that were people looking at his academic qualifications or where he was from? No,
As if they care.
they didn't really care. It's about the promise of what he could fulfill for a lot of individuals.
and what he
on an
had shown himself
to be able to do previously.
Yes.
And that was it.
In terms of meeting the expectations and needs of what people see, you see, people who try to analyze this forget to understand that there is what the Mwenenji field a leader should be. Sonko seems to have met that threshold adequately. By the time you get the sort of votes that guy was getting, man, you're really popular. You're genuinely popular.
He'd actually convince people.
Yes. People are convinced.
And so now people thought if he could do this as an individual, now
Same
if he
with
got into a
Sakaja.
position of leadership, what would he do now that he had the machinery? What would he be able to
Remember MP, senator,
do?
then
Right,
governor.
Then governor.
Yes.
So
And with all those votes, this guy used to get some really impressive votes.
Yep.
So even when you talk about him being, well, there are those who cast aspersions as to his management skills of the county and what have you, that particular point of view will be a subject of much debate among very many people who believe he's a good governor.
Let's see in the next election, actually.
The next election actually would be the proof of this particular pudding.
We'll see it when we get there. 16 minutes after 7, this is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, we live stream the show on Spice FM KE, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. In the room, we have CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, and Eric Latiff. We're looking at a big story in the papers this morning. Shortly, we'll be crossing over and looking at what corporate organizations are doing to support the fight against COVID-19, and we'll be speaking to Head of Communications and Public Affairs for Sub-Saharan Africa at Google. I'm moving on. I'm not
crossed the divide.
I've crossed 19.
Western.
Tosa. 17 minutes after 7.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi. 16 degrees, we're going to see high of 23 today. And looking into Njeri, it's a bit of a showery situation this morning. It'll change later though, and it'll take us into partly cloudy conditions with highs of 23 and lows of 14. Nakuru is mostly cloudy at 14 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 13, with thunderstorms expected later. Clear skies in Eldoret this morning at 13, highs of 20 and lows of 12, and a chance of a shower here and there. 19 degrees in Kisumu, highs of 27 and lows of 19. And we'll have showers also. It's going to be a wet afternoon in Kakamega. Currently, mostly cloudy conditions at 16, taking us to highs of 24. In Mombasa, it's mostly cloudy at 24. There was a bit of a sprinkle earlier on that has stopped, but it will continue later with highs of 28 and lows of 23. Mostly cloudy conditions in Namalindi at 24 will take to temperatures of 28. and showers later on. Kampala is mostly cloudy at 19 degrees, highs of 25 and lows of 19, and chances of showers also quite high. Light rain showers already being experienced in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. Highs of 29 and lows of 22. It's a chilly morning in Johannesburg at 2 degrees, highs of 16 and going down to lows of 1. In Lagos, it's 25 degrees and partly cloudy, highs of 30 and lows of 23. And the rains are also likely to make a debut this morning. All right, let's take a look into Europe. Finally, now it's 21 degrees and clear skies in Paris, highs of 33 and lows of 20. London at 20 degrees is going to be partly cloudy and then going into sunny conditions later with highs of 23 and lows of 18. It's inching closer to Thursday morning in New York, 24 degrees currently, taking to highs of 30 and lows of 18 in the Big Apple.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A very good morning to you, and we appreciate everybody who's tuned in via the streams on Facebook, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. All right, people like Levi, Dennis. Actually, the moment WhatsApp is able to live stream, you will see.
Okay.
This will be the big one. This is the biggest social media platform in the country. Watching live from Nandi County. Good morning, Laban Tanui Kapte. Tuned in from South B is John Korir, and Malindi is Dorcas Kimodo. Everybody who's online, good morning to you. So floods in Budalangi, we talked about this. We spoke to the residents of Budalangi, the leaders in Budalangi, and what was happening then. We even spoke to the county commissioner for the Busia County. Now, the people have gone back. So the floods have subsided, have receded, and it's a fresh start once again for the victims of Budalangi floods. Residents, hundreds of them, are back to their homes, and now they are reconstructing their huts. They are trying to reconstruct their lives. The floods were occasioned by the River Nzoia bursting its banks and the backflow in Lake Victoria, which left more than 40,000 people in the area homeless. According to the CS for Devolution, Eugene Omalwa, the number of houses swept away stood at 1,586. The people who have died countrywide because of the floods, 219, and 3,300 acres of cash crop destroyed. Some of the residents returning to their homes have consequently resumed farming in certain parts of Budalangi. The story quotes Walter Ogada, who is tending to his tomato crop, which has started fruiting. And he says he leased 3 acres in a village because floods destroyed his entire crop in Bunyala South sub-county.
I think about the floods and how they've ended, quote unquote, and now people starting a new life. And I'm asking myself, what will happen next year if things are not done between now and when they come back?
Please consider.
It's just going to be
these floods were unusual in
this
their
particular
intensity,
year.
ferocity. But remember, these areas flood almost every year.
This is it.
And it isn't as though a solution to ensure that even when there's lots of water, flooding doesn't occur to this extent. It isn't as though the solution doesn't exist. It exists. So this is one of those situations where you have to now to go back and ask, okay, given the solutions that we know exist and which can actually be acted upon or adopted by county governments and national government, why is this not being done? Because we know ahead of time. Some of these catastrophes, we know ahead of time. And even when they start, we know.
But I mean, now we're in
it's like
2020.
we watch.
We know that this is going to happen in 2021. We are aware. We know now that the same people who now Eric is reading about now, who are going to start a new life after the floods have ended, are going to go back into this situation next year if something is not done.
If you want to understand what happens, the Muhoroni area, the settlement scheme in Muhoroni, was one of the schemes that the government had in those 60 days to answer the question that we are asking. People in the Kano Plains who are constantly, perennially being troubled by floods, you're told, okay, there's this government land here. You can do A, B, C, D, or even E, F, G, H if you like, but you are able to move here. That was the solution then. But remember, This is something that happens every single year.
Yeah.
And we are not. We have countries that reclaim land from water. Us, we have water reclaiming land. It isn't as though solutions are not possible. They're possible.
It's really possible to get there. The bit that stands out for me in this story is that we're not hearing anything like the government had put up plans to help these people move in and rebuild their homes. The government is not involved at all.
COVID.
And this is what they were fearing when they were refusing to move. Remember?
They didn't want
when
to
we
move.
spoke to them, they were saying, look,
we don't want to move.
we move and then we'll be left to our own devices. The government will not come into our aid. So all we're hearing from the government is the statistics. These are the number of people who are affected. These are those who died, and we fed them during the time. Now, in terms of rebuilding their lives, it sounds like they are on their own.
214 deaths, is it, countrywide?
Yep.
From flooding.
Mtongwe Ferry, when it submerged, killed 272 people. Again,
One event.
could have been avoided. The point here, the similarity is, could have been avoided. All these things, all these deaths could have been avoided. If we gave the amount of hoo-ha that we gave to the arrest of the 3 senators in such matters,
Yes.
well, let's be kind. Not 100% of it, just 50% of the hoo-ha we gave the arrest of the 3 senators. Can you imagine how much traction these matters would gain? It's mentioned once in a while, then it's forgotten.
It's forgotten.
And people are still not in their homes.
We're talking about very many people whose lives have been completely disrupted.
Shattered
and
completely.
you lost your house. In fact, it's quoting people who are saying, my children's books and everything else, all our belongings.
You know, they've actually lost
swept
everything.
away,
Yeah.
right?
They've lost everything.
So these children, in fact, even when you're talking about, schools should reopen, schools are going to reopen next year, we're going to start homeschooling under trees and in social halls. They don't even have halls and trees. They don't have books.
Those halls you speak of is where people live.
That's where people live.
The schools that you speak of, which haven't been submerged, is where people live.
Those are dormitories for now. So what are you talking about? And this is an entire community in an entire sub-county. In fact, not just one. I think, was it 2 or 3 sub-counties in Busia and into other counties as well surrounding the lake.
This story was about those those sub-counties. What about the rest of the country that has similar problems?
People in Tana River, people in Garissa.
What about those in Baringo?
West Pokot.
Yes, Baringo now.
Baringo now.
Nakuru now. Forget the fish story. They've lost land, gone, submerged.
In some cases, homes.
Yes.
And yet we don't actually get that kind of, oomph and attention.
To say that something needs to be done about this so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
I mean, we spoke to also local leaders. We spoke to people in the area who said, okay, yes, the problem is money. We're not able to, we need this amount. We're not able to get such from the national government. I mean, come on. And like we said, the same people who are complaining, 2021, they're going to be complaining.
Wouldn't it be nice when we are hearing stories of, since this happened, what the national government has done for us?
Yeah.
We've seen this happening. We've seen this. Wouldn't it be a lovely story, at least to hear it once in a while?
In fact, the story now would be leading with how homes are being built.
Yeah.
Yes.
How the community is coming together because materials have been provided, the engineering support has been provided. Now they're just offering their labor.
They've mobilized National Youth Service, they've mobilized the army, and this is what's happening.
This is what's happening. So we can see a proper reconstruction of the area. And then we're talking about the issue that was nagging the people, which is people who have not agreed on how land compensation is going to happen so that we can construct the dikes. That has also been resolved. Or the conversation has progressed from this point where it was in January. Now we are closer to actually building these dikes to ensure that future flooding will not happen here because the dikes have been sorted.
Nothing.
That's the Kenyan things of nothing.
So essentially, everything that we keep hearing in terms of promises falls into the category of what in the English would call codswallop.
Codswallop.
It's actually English.
Yes. It's a very close relative of gobblegook.
Gobblegook. Remember?
Swallow.
Essentially, Eric is saying gobblegooey.
Yeah.
Remember, Alan told you it's not gobblegook, it's gobblegook.
Yes, Alan made a point. Yes, I was thinking of that word that I have difficulty pronouncing. Poignant. It's pronounced?
Poignant.
Yes, that one, yes.
Okay.
He meant a word one point.
You made that point.
All right, then.
Good morning. It's 7:30. It's a situation. Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at traffic, and then we continue with the big conversations of the day.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, what's it looking like today? Ngong Road inbound, Adams Arcade, flowing very well this morning and getting yourself towards the City Mortuary roundabout and then on towards Valley Road or down Ngong Road, heading towards Community and out into the CBD. Looking very good this morning. Take your record 4 minutes, but I'm not advocating for speed. Please take it easy. Be extra careful on Outer Ring today. The innermost lane with the white continuous line comes to an abrupt end, okay? And we've had 2 accidents there this morning because you're not quite sure where to go. So with that abrupt end means that you have nowhere to go thereafter. So please be very careful. And the alert is being given for something to be done about that. Okay, looking at other parts of the roads this morning. Dawn Home is also looking good today. Outer Ring looking good apart from that particular area. Coming off from Gong Road, like we said, looks good. Coming off of Thika Road into the CBD, also looking good. So let us know where you might be stuck. Mombasa Road, we know also that we're in the middle of traffic hours, so we expect heightened levels of traffic there. And Thika Road as well. Spice of MKE on Twitter, that's how you can reach us.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up
Kenya's
yourself.
biggest conversation continues in the room. We have Eric, Latiff, Nduh Okoh, and CT Muga. Let's talk about COVID-19 and what we've seen in COVID-19 times. COVID has come and disrupted our lives, right? So things have just happened, and suddenly we are basically trying to adapt to a new normal, so to speak. And still at the same time, there's a lot of information that is still required on COVID-19 and what's happening in the fight against COVID-19. What's the latest, especially looking at it from the World Health Organization's perspective, that the WHO is communicating to the world on a daily basis. And this is the progress that the world is making towards COVID-19. And these are the alerts that are there in COVID-19. And then at the same time, we just look at how our lives have changed. So suddenly, virtual meetings have become the norm. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, even virtual learning has become the norm, where, initially a few people in the society were actually attending virtual learning, and this mostly was in the higher learning institutions, not Kenyan, it's important to note, but those that were taking some courses and programs associated with international universities from here would be able to actually go through an entire course and graduate just by studying online. Mm-hmm. So now this is becoming a normal thing. So for very many schools as well, globally, education has basically gone virtual. So we're talking about a lot of technological support that has come in during this time of moving into the new normal. Other things, when you think about safety of such, when you're going and putting all your information now online, banking is now also happening a lot online. A lot of things are happening online, and there's a lot of information and people trying to just get used to what is this new normal. Yep. And when you want to find out more information about COVID-19, you go and search. Okay, the word for search now has basically just been transformed into you Google it. So you go and Google information.
That is the search.
On what's the best platform to use if I want to communicate, if I want to host a meeting online. What's the information that I need to know about a certain country with regards to its COVID preparedness, and a lot more.
The world's encyclopedia.
That's it. It's the world's encyclopedia. Right there on your fingertips. Let's speak to the Head of Communication and Public Affairs for Sub-Saharan Africa at Google. And this is Dorothy Okoh. Dorothy, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to the Situation Room. My co-host, say hello.
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 Good morning, Dorothy.
Good morning. Finally, I get to talk to you.
Finally.
Yes.
Good morning, Dorothy.
Good morning.
Now, Dorothy, when you're talking about Google, in fact, this conversation
It's my
comes...
first time in the Situation Room, so I'm really nervous.
Oh, wow.
Gee,
On
relax.
a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are you?
I am
At?
an 8.
Oh,
8 is okay.
Oh, 10 being least nervous.
8 is you're fine. You're actually very fine.
You're
okay.
fine.
You're doing well. Yesterday was World Humanitarian Day, and this, in fact, one of the things that we discussed even yesterday was people who are being recognized for the work that they're doing. This year, World Humanitarian Day has moved into focusing on healthcare and healthcare workers. There are people who are helping communities in the fight against COVID-19 and other health challenges in the world. But also at the same time, we are dealing with this pandemic globally. So when it comes to Google itself and the work that Google has done towards helping the fight against COVID, what are you guys doing?
Right, thank you. And first of all, as you said, the important thing has been to appreciate and show our gratitude to the frontline workers who have done a lot and risked their lives. And when we talk frontline, it's not just the doctors, but even delivery people, people who are delivering our pizzas and the food that we're ordering, because those are the trends that we've seen. A lot of people doing takeaways and ordering medicine or whatever it is that you need at home. So just thanking all those people. But one of the things we did, I think, when COVID really started in March, was to educate people around what you need to do. So doing the 5, do the 5 to help stop the virus was really critical, because people, it was the first time we had this virus where people were, do not touch, do not shake hands. If you're coughing, you need to use your elbow and stuff like that. So that was the first round, which was really educating people on Google search on what you needed to do. And then the next bit was then to also educate people about misinformation on YouTube. We saw a lot of YouTube videos on, if you drink garlic and onion, you'll not even get the virus at all. And so one of the things was, how do you help people with misinformation that was going around? When there's a disease that people don't know about, what happens is there's a lot of misinformation going around on how you get the disease, how you contract it, and what are the things to cure. So that was a two-pronged approach. And then, just working to ensure that, whatever ad we were seeing was something that was not capitalizing on coronavirus and people's fragility at that time, and when we've blocked tens of thousands of ads over the last month.
That's quite some work that you've done as well. But when you talk about now that, especially if we deal with looking at the information that you've pulled out, so to speak, of platforms such as YouTube, there are those that would argue that who are you to curtail freedom of expression? If somebody has an opinion and they want to pose it, and they want to put it out there and say, look, I have gone through this, I have seen that there's this nice herb that is working and it's boosting my immunity, and therefore it's going to help us in the fight against COVID, or it's going to deal with whatever, if they want to call it treatment or prevention of COVID, or it's vaccinating against COVID, those are words that other people can come in and open up as a community to discuss that. Why are you the ones to decide what works and what doesn't?
Right, and that's a good question. So our platform is really a platform that helps share information. And our mission has always been to make information accessible to everyone. And therefore, when people put information, we believe that it's information that is useful and that needs to be accessed by everyone. However, when it comes to medicine, we know that we are not the experts. And we partnered with organizations like World Health Organization, CDC, Ministries of Health, who have the mandate to provide authoritative and reliable information about COVID-19. And that's why they would say we felt that they were the only ones who would be able to say something that then we would say. So if someone said there's a cure, people are very gullible. And we saw tens of thousands of videos, claiming all sorts of therapies. And we would go, but you're not the WHO. Unless WHO says a vaccine has been found or a cure has been found, and they have proven that it works, then we would make that available. But we felt most of these were capitalizing really on sensitive events like the pandemic to be able to get the views. And you know that when you have a video on YouTube, when you get the views, YouTube pays you money for it. So people are capitalizing on this to make money for themselves. And that's why our content policies have been really strict to ensure that it has to be health related and it's not harmful and it's approved by the WHO.
You've also, looking at things have changed now, Dorothy, definitely in the way in which people meet and which people share information or get information in terms of how their work should continue. How have you been involved in this and making sure that people can continually meet and share information that they need to, even if it's not face-to-face?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. In fact, we should employ you because the way you said Google Meet, we have a product called Google Meet. And in April this year, it's been an enterprise product that people would pay for. However, in April, we made it free for everyone, which means that if you download Google Meet, you can be able to have your meeting for as long as you want. So it doesn't matter whether you're one or you're a group of people. You can talk for 1 hour or for 2 hours, and it's free. And we've seen that the use of Google Meet has really grown because people want to talk for long, not just for a few minutes. You have a conference and you don't want this limitation. So it's been free, and all you need is a code. You can send it, you can set it on your calendar, and you just send the code to people, and everyone just joins the meeting. And ensuring that privacy and security are paramount, so that if it's a doctor who's having a Google Meet with a patient, they're sure that that information they're sharing is confidential and stays there between the two of them.
The issue
so
of security.
Yeah, that's one.
The issue of security is actually a very big one now that you've brought it up. We have seen also comments and reports of people's meetings being infiltrated and wrong content being shared on platforms, especially for students and such. How is Google Meet addressing this?
Actually, we have a team at Google called that falls under trust and safety. Their mandate is to safeguard users from any misinformation, disinformation that can occur. And as you'd imagine, with the pandemic, there's been a rise in all these phishing, people who send you an email and want to get information out of you. And so they're constantly looking to the threats to make sure that, nothing like that happens, and really reacting to any case that we receive immediately. We also, in a way, educate our users to make sure that they have double verification. So if you're signing in, you'll get a notification on your phone as well, and on the laptop or desktop you're using, to make sure that it's you, because we've also known that happens. And if you're using a Chrome extension, you're told that beware, this email looks like spam, beware before you open this. So those are some of the ways that we are doing that. But we also have, like when we are doing the Google Classroom, which is really where we're using schools. Schools are using this free web service, and any school that is officially registered by the Ministry of Education can get to use Google Classroom for free. This one has been really even tightened for teachers to ensure that it's the student who's there. What information is going, the teacher has visibility to all this, because we saw that this is really important in keeping children safe, in keeping the educators and institutions really at peace, knowing that nothing like is going to happen, or from what we have seen.
Then how is it then, Dorothy, if I may ask, that in 2019, Google was actually being investigated by attorney generals right across the USA, and it was on complaints about, well, there were antitrust issues, certain antitrust laws had been abrogated, and there were issues about advertising and such traffic. How, if so much care, as you are saying, is actually put into these matters, how did these cases come about?
I think those are two cases. I think the antitrust case has nothing to do with privacy, but more of competition, about people feeling that we were using our platform to only advertise our products and not competitors. So those were antitrust issues. And I think that those continuously going, and we are continuously trying to prove that we are letting competitors be also able to advertise on our platform, that we are not making our platform just for our products. Yeah, so the antitrust, I think, are addressed all the time, and I think the big tech companies is a challenge that we face, because small companies then are asking, can we be able to advertise and compete with the big tech companies? And I think this is something we've continually sought to prove, that our platform is for all, that competitors can sell their products. So it doesn't matter whether it's, you're selling a small other ads, that you would be able to still come and sell on our platform, and we would not discriminate because you are a competitor.
I'm looking at a lot of these things came as a result of COVID, that we see what is now being labeled the new normal. But at the same time, what plans were there? I mean, in terms of moving forward with new technological advances, to say that this is the way in which you would go. Because unfortunately, we've seen that with COVID, a lot of sectors needed a lot of help that maybe governments would not be able to do on their own, and maybe needed PPPs to come in and sort this out. Do you see this then as a trend that would continue to follow, even moving into the future beyond COVID and after that, to have a platform that was more robust, that would then be able to support communities in the future?
Right, and Ndiku, you mentioned a very important point about sometimes a crisis making people be able to look and say, wow, we need to do this. So one of the things that we noticed was like going online, or even having like just online classes, like using a Google Classroom class, where you have teachers who are online, and you've got parents who have been forced to go online and learn how to use the tool, and students who are normally very agile in terms of using technology. Parents suddenly saying, we want to know how to use this because we have to monitor our kids' progress. And what we've seen is a certain fast tracking in terms of using technology to be the way forward. Before, we would have had this interview at the studio for sure. And here we are adapting to new ways of, okay, we'll have it on call, and the conversation still goes on. And that adaptation has really, I think, pushed for the use of technology in just everyday life, If you look at deliveries or even online purchases, I think for the longest while, as much as we had a platform like M-Pesa where you could pay online, a lot of people have gone to, you know what, I need to shop, and I can just put my details and pay by M-Pesa or by my credit card online and have that thing delivered to me. And so we've seen, in the community reports that we also release, and is showing that people are adapting to this new way of operating, of working, and Google Meet being a way of let's all meet. Before, we had clients who were like, no, we want to meet you face to face. With social distancing, this has been, okay, let's meet online. The only thing you need to do is make sure you're muted when we are talking. And so I think that the pandemic has been, it's a crisis, but a crisis that has forced us in a way to adapt and adjust to a new way of working, a new way of living, a new way of learning, and a new way of doing things. So, for instance, one of the things that we found out we did our YouTube trends. What we found out was that more families, Kenyans, were really going on YouTube to learn how to cook. Mm-hmm. So they would look for the cooking channels, the local cooking channels, and those were the ones they were looking at to cook, because in these times of the pandemic, people are not going out to restaurants. So guess what? People are finding out new skills. Oh, I want to learn how to cook. I want to make better mandazis. I want to make better chapatis. So I think the new skills people are finding out what to do. And this is what we have seen. And I think that we're going to discover more, or picking new hobbies that people didn't know they could do. But now they're like, we are online. I can learn this skill on YouTube. And so I'm going to learn how to make flowers on YouTube and sell them to friends. Yeah.
So we have, like you've said, the pandemic is basically forcing us to think outside the box and to adopt new ways of doing things. One of the greatest challenges that we're finding in the country, and of course indeed in the world, is the fact that schools have had to close for a long period of time. In this country, we are still talking about, trying to register teachers so that teachers can offer tuition to the students in their localities. Using platforms such as Google Classroom and the other technologies, are you working with the government to work on ways in which we can actually expand this and ensure that learning can happen in using Google Classroom and other platforms, but also in a very easy and affordable way for those that are not able to get access to technology at present?
Right. And Eric, you raise a valid point that part of the challenge of technology has been this idea of access to internet and affordability of the internet. And it has also shown divides, because some people can afford to have internet for their kids and some people cannot. And so one of the things I know that we have had, for instance, our partners, we work with telco, so Safaricom, for instance, giving special bundles to institutions, which enables students to be able to access that information when they need it. But Telkom Kenya as well and Alphabet launched Project Loon. Now, Project Loon was all about having internet delivered to the remote areas where you wouldn't think of internet, because it's very costly to set up, even a 3G station. So when telcos are looking for places to invest, they normally look for a place where there is population, because you're going to recover your setting up of the base station. But when you're in a remote area like Turkana, Samburu, where you cannot access that area, it's not economically viable to set up the same. But now with Project Loon, that partnership with Telkom Kenya, that means that in these remote areas, you are able to have this balloon, be able to deliver internet across these regions. And we are hoping that with what Telkom Kenya is doing, that these areas will be able to have internet, and then they're able to go to school like everyone else. So it doesn't matter that you're not close to the capital city, but you are still able to access this. So we are also watching to see how the Loon Telkom Kenya partnership goes in terms of just having this balloon-powered internet across regions of Kenya and seeing how that goes. So that started in 2019, and hopefully by end of 2020, I know the government is pushing aggressively to make sure that these remote areas are connected to the internet. And that business model is what other countries in Africa are looking at to see how it works so that they can adapt to this.
Can I ask, please, if you could tell us a little bit more about corporate social responsibility projects that Google has in Kenya, the ones they've implemented, the ones they're planning to implement?
Right. So one of the, some I can't announce. So we have a few that are really COVID related. We call them local emergency relief, which was really about helping local organizations that are helping people in the grassroots to deal with COVID. So our partner organization, Give Directly, and Shofco, who work in Kibera, is how are they giving money to these sustained, to families that are impacted. And the way of help is either by providing food, so giving food coupons, or providing water coupons, whatever is needed, or giving a small loan that helps a family be able to buy food that they need for the week. So that's what we're doing right now, which is called, we are calling that emergency relief for COVID, but very local. So not working with the big organizations, but really going at the grassroots and making sure that happens. We are also working with organizations that are really dealing directly with frontline workers, and be it they're making masks that are needed to be able to help at the local level. So that's where we are. And I think other announcements that I cannot make right now, because we're going to make them in the next few weeks on how we are helping small businesses to be able to stay afloat in this time.
Many people have lost jobs, Dorothy, during this time. And one of the things that someone would expect is, many people would be thinking is, if I can get an opportunity where I can work and earn online, for example, by creating content, this could be a way out. Like you said, very many people are doing searches on how to cook. Is Google working with local communities to entrench the concept of content creation using the platforms that you have?
Absolutely. And actually, as I said, I do not want to preempt our announcements that are coming soon, but there's a lot that we are doing. And one of the things we're doing is just showing people how to, first of all, be able to create your business online so that it stays online, how to build your tools, how to access other markets. So really, because that's what we've seen, the trend that we've seen is that online is where business is. So if you're online, then even a pandemic like this doesn't affect you because people are still able to order. So that's what we're going to do. You're going to hear in the next few weeks announcements about even new product features we've created to help people be online and share their businesses. So you could have your business, you could have your side hustle and create online, and that when I come to Google search, as you said, and I'm Googling something, your business will be able to show up immediately. So those are some of the strategies we're having, really keen to make sure that if you look at Kenya, the informal sector is what keeps the economy going. And so it's so important that we make sure that the informal sector stays strong by giving them the tools and the skills that they will need to go through the rest of the year as we battle COVID-19.
So let's just say that then we look forward to those announcements. And when you make that announcement, you'll speak to us again and explain in detail what new initiatives you've come up with.
I look forward to that.
Dorothy, thank you very much for speaking to us. Nduh Okoh is the Head of Communications and Public Affairs for Sub-Saharan Africa at Google. We thank you for speaking to us and we hope to engage again soon.
Thank you so much. I look forward to being in the Situation Room again.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Asante sana.
Thank you.
All right, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's remind you about this information portal by the Kenya Ports Authority, kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo.
Yeah, so we're bringing some generators in from the UK for CT Muga. And we're at the point where Captain Cargo tells us that the process is quite seamless. We are at the point where your agent now obtains a manifest number from the shipping agent and lodges the entry with KRA or Partner Revenue Authorities. So it's in transit cargo now. There's a document needed in transit cargo. And now your stuff is that as it's on the way, KRA and other revenue authorities need to pass an entry. Now, your agent then pays duty to the respective revenue authority. So it's paid on the side of the UK. It's paid here as well. And then they surrender the bills of lading in exchange for a delivery order from the shipping agent. And that is then sent via electronic delivery to KPA. So KPA is expecting your cargo, and Captain Cargo has let us know that it's quite easy to see on the portal what's happening on the seas.
So what you're explaining now is the import processes, the procedures for importing cargo into the port of Mombasa or any
Yes.
other port in Kenya. And there are 16 steps. We're just taking you through the 16 steps. You can find them on Captain Cargo. This is kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
Right, so there's madness on
Kisumu.
Mombasa Road today, guys. It's bumper to bumper. It's not moving anyway past the SGR and then headed towards Cabanas and then until GM. General Motors then takes you for a smooth cruise and then you get to Bellevue where the construction is taking place and you're going to get stuck again. So Mombasa Road today is a place that you don't necessarily want to be if you did not leave early, guys. Hopefully that'll clear up. It is right in the middle of traffic hour, as we say. Hopefully you will not be here for too long. Thika Road as well, getting into the CBD via the Globe Cinema roundabout. This is assuming you've come through the Pangani underpass. Not too terrible. It's moving, not bumper to bumper as yet. It's moving slowly, however, though. All right, getting in and out of the CBD, not too bad. Uhuru Highway all the way from Nyayo Stadium until Westlands, not too terrible. We'll let you know how that changes as we go along. If you do get stuck, let us know. Or if you find a good route where there's no traffic, let us know as well. Spice of MKE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only
2
way
minutes
to
after
start.
8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting from Nairobi to Malindi 97.7, in Nyeri 90.9, Eldoret 96.7, 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and 94.4 in Nairobi. And also live streaming on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. Let's talk about Parliament and management of Parliament. We've seen this and we've even discussed this many times before. A story today in the Star is talking about how it's emerging that it's likely that some members of the Senate have been induced with some monetary incentive to vote one way or the other in the ongoing standoff over the CRA formula. We've heard this before. We have seen what's happening in the Senate recently. You know, people come in and basically it's just sort of like it's running out of order. People shouting at one another, people disagreeing, people not seeming to get consensus, not seeming to even want to reach a consensus at any point in and out. Now, there's a fresh attempt, of course, and we've got to acknowledge this, that there's 12 senators who are sitting now, and this is an ad hoc team that had been set up to find a consensus to this ongoing standoff. But during the proceedings in the Senate, we have seen how senators just stand up and they stand, and we've even seen Mutula Kilonzo Jr. standing there and asking the senator, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, why are you scared? Who has threatened you? And speaking directly like that to the Speaker. And others standing up and saying, no, Mr. Speaker, I keep trying to get your attention so that you can give me an opportunity to speak, and I still seem not to get an opportunity to speak. In fact, the ones I feel sorry for is the Speaker of the National Assembly. You're dealing with over 300 members. If all of them are in the House during a session and all of them want to speak and contribute to a certain motion or debate on a certain bill, how do you choose who speaks and who doesn't? How do you cut off somebody and tell them, all right, okay, we've heard you now. Sit down. Let's hear from Honorable C.T. Muga. How do you even do this? How do you ensure that you retain respect inside the chamber, outside the chamber? You also ensure that the members of parliament conduct themselves with the decorum and mutual respect for one another when they are inside the precincts of Parliament. All these things are actually crucially important. Recently, we have seen people who are raising questions about the leadership of these houses. Not just the speaker or the speaker's panel, but also in the leaders of the minority and the majority and the chairs of committees and how they're conducting their business. This is all an issue that, keeps popping now and then.
And what does leadership look like within this house on the floor? What does it look like? And in terms of then not curtailing anyone's rights to have an opinion, what does it look like then to be able to stay within those rights, but actually show that you're shepherding a group of people who clearly at some point need shepherding?
Yep.
What should that look like when these individuals are gods to their own at some point, but in some place they need to be curtailed, as it were.
And also, they'll keep reminding you that they elected you. All right? So, whatever you're doing, remember that I was elected by the people. I'm here on the fact that I was elected by the people, but I participated in choosing you to be our speaker. So, always remember that. Let's speak to somebody who maintained the respect of the houses for 15 years. So, this man was speaker between 1993, and this is the first multi-party parliament after the repealing of Section 2A. So remember, this parliament brought in new vibrant leaders who were in the opposition, who were coming in, and their mantra before in the election was Operation Moi out. And then there are those who were saying Moi must stay. So we had this whole mix of parliamentarians in the 1993 to 97 parliament. And then in the 97 to 2002 parliament, similar kind of mix with an agitation, the 97 IPPG talks and all. And then the transition parliament from the Moi era to the Kibaki era, the 2003 to 2007 parliament, the 2008 parliament, and what was happening then, the 2007 parliament rather. He was still speaker in those 3 terms of parliament. This is Francis Ole Kaparo, the second longest serving speaker of the National Assembly in the Republic of Kenya. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you. My pleasure.
In the room, you have C.T. Muga and Nduh Okoh as well.
Who?
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning.
So, Bonakaparo, we have just talked about how you served as speaker in three consecutive terms, and these were tough parliaments, so to speak. I mean, let's just look back at your experience in the first parliament of 93 to 97. This is a group that had come in. They had pushed and clamored for multi-partyism. There were very many of them that were elected. There was also the KANU side that had come in, and they were victorious, and they were coming in to say, you guys thought you'd remove us from power. We are still here, and we are here to stay. How was it then?
Well, it was very, very difficult. As you probably will remember, that parliament came in place after a very violent and divisive campaign after the repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution. Added to that, we had an evenly divided House. There were 100 members of the combined opposition and 112 members of the government side, 12 of whom were nominated. If you remove the nominated, it was a draw, 100 and 100. So it was very difficult. At the time I was being elected to the speaker, the voting was strictly on party lines. And we had to do it 3 times, just scrapped by the 12 votes. But out of that, there was open hostility between members of the government side and those of the opposition. As a matter of fact, for a long, long time, the members would not say hello to one another, leave alone speak to one another. outside the chamber. And even within the chamber, the talk was across the aisle. So it was quite difficult, and it continued for more than 6 months. Members of government side and those of the opposition not talking to one another.
What changed?
There was in the middle.
What changed?
I had to devise a way in which to make members relate to one another as a family of the same house, as Kenyans. And I sent 15 of them to the U.S., 7 from the opposition, and 8 from government. I sent them to the U.S. Congress. I wanted them, the intention was twofold. First, to allow members to see the functioning of a multi-party parliament. And secondly, and much more important to me, was for them finally to talk to one another. And the report I got is that on their way through London and 3 other days in Washington, they were still not in talking terms. Again, finally, when it dawned on them that they were at that hotel, probably the only Kenyans around, they began speaking. They spoke to each other while in Washington. They spoke to one another on their way back, and that seed was planted in Nairobi, in the National Assembly. And finally, members began to relate to one another as human beings. They began to talk to one another.
Did you see that was your responsibility, Bwana Olakaparo, to do this intentionally as a leader?
Indeed, I did that intentionally, because the speaker is the speaker of the whole house, not a section, and not of any particular party. Indeed, when I was elected speaker in 1993, January 26, very following day, January 27, 1993, I resigned from my position as Secretary of KANU Laikipia, and I also resigned as a party member of KANU. Intention was to free myself from party baggage, so that I can become the head of the institution that was called Parliament.
And you had to be completely impartial here in this. During these debates,
Yes,
I can imagine.
As far, if I may correct that,
Yes.
it is completely impossible to be impartial, completely. But I try to be as impartial as humanly possible.
So the other bit that makes it completely impartial, is it because of your personal beliefs and personal leanings, or is it because of pressure from the outside? And also looking at the allegiance, who is it that had participated in getting you into that office?
Well, I think you must get this right. Once you become the speaker, you have basically 2 employers. The greater employer is the Kenyan people. Those are the people you serve, and they pay you. The second is the house, because it's the house that elected you to that position, and it is the house that you must. And I mean the house, the totality of it, not the government side or the opposition side, the House.
It might not be easy for many people who are observing from outside to remember that, okay, so this was a candidate who had been proposed by this party, and the members who had overwhelmingly voted for this person belong to a certain party. And maybe that's why we also see, you remember recently the Speaker of the Nairobi County Assembly, Beatrice Elachi, tendered her resignation, and she made a public statement where she said that she has spoken to the president and told the president that she's resigning from her seat. And the conversation was, why would you be speaking to the president?
I would ask the same. I truly would ask the same. I think the allegiance of the Speaker is to the House primarily and to the larger Kenyan society.
How do you keep it in line, though? I mean, you've said a few minutes ago that everybody came in and they operated on party lines or in position principle, as it were. And now how do you then shepherd these individuals who have clearly their own political agenda, however way you want to look at it, have a political agenda. However, their allegiance is to the House. How do you balance between the two? Or their allegiance should be to the House for matters of the nation. How do you balance between the two?
I don't know whether I don't think you have been Speaker, but my understanding of the speakership is that once you are Speaker, you have no political position. The politicians, the members of the House, are the executors of their various political positions. The Speaker must try as much as possible, humanly possible, to steer away from partisan politics. And look at it this way. In 1993, when I was first elected, I managed just slightly over 50% of the vote of the House.
Yeah.
The following year, I got 87%. The third term, I only missed 2 votes, 99%. That's what 0.9 I got. It simply means members then appreciate that within human limits, you are doing service for the entirety of the House. The Speaker must have around him certain qualities. Chief among them is humor. Secondly, you must always retain around you wit. And thirdly, you must understand the Constitution properly and the standing orders. And finally, try as much as possible to keep your own feelings out of the debate. And fifthly, you must execute your job as firmly as possible. And you don't have to fear the consequences. Once you have fear around you, you will not do the right thing.
It's interesting that you said the first one is humor and then wit. Why would this be very important?
The House, most of the time, in very, very controversial debates, the House is very tense. And people get angry, and it's human.
Yep.
And the best thing to diffuse tension is laughter.
Yep.
And you can't laugh if there's nothing to laugh at. So you must have some humor to make people laugh and consequently relax.
Mr. Kaparo, would you say that your background, education, and practice as a lawyer helped tremendously in your being a Speaker of the National Assembly?
indeed it did. But I must also add that not every lawyer would make a good speaker. And I can also say that a person who is not a lawyer cannot be a good speaker. But it does help a lot to be a lawyer because, first of all, you understand the law. And secondly, as a practicing advocate, you have been in the court and you must listen to the opposing argument without having to unnecessarily antagonize the person proposing the views that you don't agree with.
When you have a house like presently we are seeing the kind of debates that are ongoing in the Senate, there's a lot of disagreement, there's a lot of, even to a point of disharmony where people accuse each other of pushing a certain agenda and trying to force through a certain agenda. When people are speaking outside the chamber, they are also uttering some statements that others are finding are completely distasteful. What is it that you would do as Speaker during your tenure to ensure that when people are in the House, they focus on the order of the order paper and not this other drama?
During my time,
Yes.
and during the period I knew as the Commonwealth parliamentary practice, no member, and I repeat, no member is allowed to carry out debate outside the House. And if a member did that, he would be called by Mr. Speaker and the Powers and Privileges Committee and dealt with and punished accordingly. It is wrong, I repeat, it is wrong for members to take out debate continuing in the House and take it to funerals or to press conferences or to other places. Because that would mean that you don't need the House. If you can execute your agenda in the public domain, why then come to the House? And the greatest punishment that I would give to the offending member is not to allow that member to participate in that debate because he has already had his say outside the chamber.
The very thing that you describe seems to be the order of the day in present time. It seems to be, it is rampant. It's happening all over the place. I mean, you hear about debates, it's going on now.
Unfortunately, and it is killing the interests of members who speak in the chamber, and it is lowering the dignity of the House.
What powers does the Speaker have to enforce these powers that they have? How do you enforce them to ensure that people comply?
Well, I have just told you one of them.
Yeah, that's one. Is it the only one?
Just you. No. As I told you, you make that communication that any member participating in debate pending in the House will not be allowed to speak in the House. And if they persist, you can bring them to the Powers and Privileges Committee. And there are various sanctions that may be given, including exclusion from the House, if it is grave enough.
Is this rule stipulated in the standing orders of Parliament?
I haven't looked at the current standing orders. But I know during my time it was there. If it is not there, it's most unfortunate. And if it is there, it is also unfortunate that it's being flouted almost on a daily basis. But I cannot give you a definite answer because I haven't had a look at the standing orders because there is no reason for me to look at.
Also, during your time, there were instances where you would ask a member to leave the chamber because of either words that they've uttered during debate or in the chamber, or conduct, how they've conducted themselves in the House. We haven't seen that recently as well.
I don't know. I really don't know. I haven't been following much. You can't follow today's proceedings in Parliament unless you sit and watch TV, because it's hardly in the radio, and it's hardly in the print media either. So it's difficult to follow unless you tune in on TV and look at the channel of parliamentary proceedings and sit all day and watch. And I don't think that's a good occupation. So I don't know what has happened, but yeah, at some time when the offense is grave, I had once an occasion to exclude some members from the House for the balance of the session, which was more than 3 months, without pay and without allowances and without stepping in Parliament, if the matter was grave. And it was indeed grave. But I will not tell you what it was, and I will not tell you who they were, because the Speaker must keep confidentiality on matters that have transpired between the Speaker and members.
There have been, there's talk right now that the leadership in the House is wanting, especially when it comes to the Senate, looking at the way this issue of the formula for revenue allocation has dragged on for long. There are those that say, looking at the Speaker's panel, there's some weakness there in terms of a Speaker not being able to rally the House together so that they can arrive at a consensus. And also the leadership of the majority and the minority, because none of them seems to be able to galvanize troops on either side. What do you say to that?
Well, I can tell you I don't want to be prefect of any of the Houses of Parliament. I left it. I'll tell you why. I left being Speaker in 2008. I have no intention of coming back, and I don't I don't want anybody to think that I'm suffering from sour grapes.
You know why, Mr. Kaparo? The reason why we ask is somebody who was the second longest serving speaker that this country has ever had. That is not a small achievement, neither is it a small experience. Now, are we saying that our parliamentarians, both in the Senate and in the National Assembly, have changed? Are we saying that our understanding of policies, standing orders, and the manner in which parliamentarians should conduct themselves has changed? Are we saying that there is no minimum requirement that a speaker must have in order to have that? What are we saying? Because if what we are seeing continues, then there will be a great disservice to the people of Kenya just by virtue of having a situation such as the one my colleague Eric has described.
Indeed, if I may just give you a preview of the first House I presided over.
Yes.
I had Jaramogi and his son Raila in the House. I had Martin Shikuku and his brother Oyondi. I had Jeremiah Nyaga and his son Norman. I had all the young Turks, as they were then called.
Yep.
And as I said, it was an evenly divided House. But society also changes. And the House must be a reflection of our society. If our society is becoming disorderly, you don't expect the Parliament to be separate and apart from the greater society. If society doesn't demand honor and good conduct, either from itself or from those that lead them, then you don't blame the leadership. But let me just say this. I think it is the business of the leadership of Parliament, the Speaker included, to ensure that the greater good of the people of Kenya is achieved without a lot of side shows.
And how do you bring the troops, how do you rally the troops together? For example, during your tenure, there was a full clamor for now constitutional change. This is after the multi-party election. You have the parliamentarians who've come in and they're in the opposition. They're pushing for that. In 97, there was the IPPG. And then from that point on, all the way up to 2010, when you were speaker until 2007, there was a full clamor for constitution. In fact, there was a Bomas conference and you were a speaker of the National Assembly at that time. How do you get the members to leave everything outside, out of the doors of the chamber, and when they come in, they focus on what's the best for the country?
You know, as speaker, you are the titular head of the organization. You become a father head, if you are male, of the whole institution. And you must honor that respect. You know, it can't be given. You must earn it. You must work very hard to get the respect of the greatest number of members possible. And once you are considered the titular head, a father figure of the House, a lot of consultations will be held by the speaker with individual members or groups of members, and finally you will be able to reach a consensus or find a way out of a dilemma. This is what happened in IPPG. I more or less took charge of it and brought the warring parties together, and we drafted the very basic minimum requirements for constitutional change. This is also what happened when we had a similar thing like what is going on in the Senate. The creation of the Constituency Development Fund, which was highly resisted by the executive, and we canvassed as members of the House, and when we thought it was absolutely necessary to do so, and the members drafted the bill, and it was steered through the House. We also did that for the development of the District Roads Fund, as it then was called. It was into constituency. Again, it was highly resisted by the executive, but under the leadership of the Speaker and the House leadership. And remember that time, the leader of government business was minister. Most of the time, vice president. But you had the whips, and the whips worked closely with the Speaker. And I worked very, very closely with the whips, and we tried to bridge gaps wherever there were between the various competing parties. But that was then. I don't know what is the situation today.
How often, for example, Bwana Speaker, would you call speakers Kamukunji, and what other tools and instruments would you use?
By the way, I was the creator of the speakers Kamukunji. Before me, it was not there. I realized at some time that it was not possible to iron out particularly in-house matters or disagreements in the open plenary. And there was no other avenue then available to bring members together and talk in-house. And consequently, I created the Speakers Kamkunji. And it was only there for members. Even members of staff were not allowed it. The press was not allowed it. And we kept, as much as humanly possible, what we discuss in-house. So it's a very important instrument. And it was something that we used a lot when there were huge disagreements and bring members to some level of consensus I still encourage it. I think it's a good instrument, but of course, it's entirely up to the person currently holding those positions to decide how to deal with the matters of the House. I am not, and I will not try to offer any directive or advice.
Okay. Now let's talk about cohesion as we conclude the conversation. You also served as chair of the Cohesion Commission, and what we are seeing, what we've heard recently is also still with the debate about this formula is the reemergence of the issue of marginalization and use of language that some have felt is basically hate speech against their communities. What would you say about this?
Well, first of all, let's admit we have had a problem of an equal distribution of resources across Kenya since independence. That's a fact. You cannot run away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is historical. The colonial government denied the resources to almost two-thirds of Kenya for development. I don't know what their reason was. The independent governments continued in that similar direction. And for a long time, two-thirds of Kenya was suffering and continued to suffer for lack of provision of resources for development.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why we had the CDF. That's why we created the District Rose Fund.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that part of Kenya, two-thirds of the landmass of Kenya is part of this country. And it is clearly left behind.
Mm-hmm.
So something has to be done. That's why in the current constitution, there was provision for the equalization fund to be created to enable those areas that were left behind to at least make some steps in the direction of development.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very noble idea. But as you know, that has not also been implemented. And if it has been done very late, and again, haphazardly. So that is a fact. Two-thirds of Kenya is crying for development.
Okay.
As part of it, it's part of our welfare.
Indeed.
It's part of Kenya.
I think that is a conversation that everybody agrees with. And then now we come into the second part, which is the first formula and the second formula have been trying very much to ensure that those considerations are put in place in the allocation of resources to these parts of the country. Do you feel that money has been utilized well to at least start bringing these areas closer towards development?
Well, you know, I think the best person to answer that question would probably be the Auditor General, number one. Secondly, the people resident in the various counties who do know better if the money is allocated to them has been utilized well. But that's besides the point. The point is funds must be availed to various parts of this country,
right, for
the improvement of the lives of the people resident there. That really is the point. But you know, I have a feeling that there is a deliberate attempt to go back to session paper number 10 of 1965, allocating resources to potential areas and denying resources to areas that don't have direct potential. But I don't know what part of Kenya does not contribute to the national good. You guys love Nyamachoma. It comes from those arid areas.
Mm-hmm.
You guys love the revenue accruing from tourism. And wildlife is resident in those undeveloped areas.
Yeah.
And the tourists also love to go there.
Yeah.
You know, every part of this country contributes something
Yeah.
to the well-being of the totality of Kenya. And that is my attitude would be. Let's look at the totality of our nation in a cool and sober manner. Let's keep these accusations aside. Let's keep selfishness aside. Let's live away from our debate who wins and who doesn't win. If parts of this country remain undeveloped, Kenya is poorer for it. If most parts of this country get developed, Kenya is richer for it. If we, as a nation, can converse without acrimony, Kenya is the better for it. If we go back to cynic hatred and language that is divisive, then Kenya is poorer for it. I think there must be a middle ground. And I think finally, the leadership of Kenya, from all corners and from all cadres, must come to the realization that we are one people, one nation, with one destiny.
Very, very solid words there. Francis Ole Kaparo, former Speaker of the National Assembly, second longest serving Speaker of Kenya's National Assembly between 1993 and 2008, has also served in other capacities for the people of Kenya. We thank you very much for speaking to us this morning, Mzee Kaparo.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation at 18 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at weather and traffic, and then we start looking at other conversations of the day. Good morning.
Spice FM. Njeri.
Okay, showers in most parts of Nairobi this morning, and we will see highs of 25 today and lows of 18. Looking into Nakuru, where showers also imminent at some point, highs of 25 and lows of 18. It'll get warmer during the day. In Nakuru, also at 16 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, seeing highs of 24 and a chance of showers later on. Eldoret, also the same, overcast today in the skies, and we're likely to see showers there too. It's turned out to be a wet afternoon through most parts of the country. Let's look that into Kisumu, where currently at 25 degrees, highs of 31 and lows of 24 today. Looking into Kakamega, also partly cloudy conditions at 17 degrees. We will see then sunny conditions coming later and highs of 26. In Mombasa, it's already raining. It has been intermittently, and it will continue throughout the day with highs of 30 today, currently at 25 degrees. Malindi is the same, where showers also will be the order of the afternoon through into early evening, then with highs of 30. We look out into Kampala, where 20 degrees, partly cloudy conditions and showers coming in soon, highs of 30 and lows of 24. Dar es Salaam is a hazy morning, a little bit of fog that has come quite low, highs of 33 and lows of 23. And finally, and then in Johannesburg at 3 degrees, it's cooling down even more today. We'll see highs of 15 and lows of -1, with sunny conditions, however, through the day. And finally, for now in Lagos, it's overcast at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 25.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
All right, how many things have changed on the roads this morning? Mombasa Road is still clogged this morning. We see that from, again, still the SGR moving forward. It is quite slow we're likely to see that this will open up much later. We don't have much issues coming off of Thika Road today. The service lanes are open and working very well. Remember that from tomorrow, however, Thika Road closes at 9:30 and at night until 4:30 in the morning, and that will happen for the next 5 days. So you need to plan your routes, plan your travel, because you can't access certain parts of Thika Road from about until after 4:30. Okay. Coming out of Western's looking good. Not much of drama. Uhuru Highway is moving very slowly all the way through in both directions. Eastern and southern bypasses are up for use, and it's fine. Thika Road also. Then around Utali is bumper to bumper all the way into the CBD. So you're gonna have to wait this one out, but it doesn't look too terrible wherever you want to look at it. Spice FM KE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
All right,
Nairobi.
14 minutes to 9 o'clock. You've heard what the former Speaker of the National Assembly has said. Very many instruments that a speaker can use to bring the House together, to calm down tensions. When you see such kind of divisions and accusations and counter-accusations, what's interesting, though, is, and actually you remember, the Speaker would usually bar people from conducting business of the House outside, so that it's just like an ongoing court case, that you cannot just go and start commenting about the merits and demerits of a bill that's being debated in the floor of the House. And now we kind of are seeing that happening.
That's interesting that he brought that up, and that House business actually cannot be discussed outside the House, because we see anything everything but that happening right now. It's discussed everywhere you go. You're sitting having a coffee. You're sitting with your colleagues. You call colleagues who you assume are of like minds, and these are leaders now, meeting in several places to talk about the agenda or their the way in which they want to go and counter this the next day or the next sitting. It's discussed in the open. It's not a secret to anybody in terms of what's going on. I mean, these investigative reports and exposés that we hear about in the media, where does that come from? Somebody's sharing information.
Yep.
Somebody's whispering into the ear of the person who's going to report it. Actually, this is what is going on, without fear that it could be mentioned that it was you who shared the information, because they are aware that really nothing is going to happen.
Although I think it's not that you ban caucusing. Members are allowed to caucus as long as you're not going to the public to start discussing and rallying support of the people and saying, you know what the opposite side is doing, and this is what we want to push through. You can have your meetings, but don't come out and say, we have finished our meeting and we are not going to allow trees to receive money in this country.
But that's what's happening now.
But
that is what we are seeing now. That's what we're privy to now. There's rallying, there's push and pull. It's to the people of Kenya. It's making you realize that this is actually what we're fighting inside. You may not be in there, but we're actually fighting for you. It's not
you
a
get
secret.
the impression that immediately they leave the August House, then the real debate.
They're looking for,
it's like now the real debate begins. So the entire discussion is actually not meant for the benefits of the citizenry. It is to show how, one, they individually are fighting for the rights of the people they're addressing.
Yep.
Okay, not the country. And how they themselves are better leaders than probably other leaders who want that very same job that they have. So the respect that enabled us to refer to our politicians as waheshimiwa goes out of the window completely. But there's nothing to heshimu there.
They're not behaving with decorum.
No.
But what do you make of what Kaparo said? This is a reflection of our society. If our entire society is losing it, then don't expect anything different from the politicians.
I think the question you should ask is, which came first, the chicken or the egg? What happened before the other? Because in the time that Mr. Kaparo speaks of,
there was order.
Not only that, but you are certainly never going to become rich by becoming a member of parliament. In fact, there are many other things you could do.
Yeah.
You may have privilege.
I would argue it's a slightly prior. in those kind of years in the multi-partyism and all.
You see, the years prior that you're referring to, everything was low priced. There were these high salaries you speak of didn't exist.
They didn't exist.
Yes.
Yep.
$1 million was the amount of money the government borrowed from another country.
Yeah.
Now, $1 million shillings is what
It's
somebody.
what you're paying someone.
Not only that, somebody keeps several of those in the house for vegetables.
Yes.
Yes.
Just in case.
It's a different time altogether. But all I'm saying was there was a certain element of order and there was a certain element of honor, as Mr. Kaparo very clearly put it. So there was a sense of limits. That went out of the window completely. There is no sense of limits. And it started off with MPs not just increasing their salaries, but they just kept hiking it.
Yeah.
It's like every opportunity, hike it. Every opportunity. And just when you think it's salaries, then come they bring in pensions. You say, okay, maybe it's necessary. They never stop. They never stop. And then when asked, they say...
But also,
Yes.
but also in the period preceding that session of parliament where MPs are coming to increase their salary, they've just participated in a very expensive campaign where the electorate was demanding handouts.
You
So
see-
chicken, egg. Which of these two is the chicken? Which of these two is
no,
the egg?
No. Eric, the electorate demand things which they know are possible and are available. Bottom line. If a bribe is available, they will take it. But where did the twist come in where a bribe became now mandatory? Meaning, you cannot speak without a handout. You cannot even be considered for any political post without a handout because this now is the norm. What I'm saying is the norm now.
To even give your opinion. Or
That's
to
why
give some
political
kind
leaders
of
even
sway.
avoid functions. They avoid things like public. They avoid because you know you are going to be asked to dish out money. So when did it become normal? When? It wasn't always normal.
Yep, it wasn't. It's a societal thing. Because it's not just for parliamentarians. There's even a song called Toa Kitu. It's become part of us. You are stranded somewhere and you're asking for directions. And this person is looking at you and wondering,
How badly do you want these directions?
"Utanipatia kitu."
Eric, you know that the direction thing
Or
is...
your
is-
car breaks down on the highway and somebody comes and just to push it off this middle lane to the side of the road. Boss, utatoa ngapi? Before they even touch it.
Eric, we've gone further. We've become entrepreneurial. They even damage the road further so that you can't pass. So that for you
You
to
leave
pass,
something.
you leave something so they can help you pass this damaged part of the road, which they damaged. Well, it starts off somewhere. You see, what we're talking about is extremities
Yeah.
that we eventually get to.
Yeah.
It wasn't always the case. That's really my point. So, I would argue this way. And the analogy I would give may be a little paternalistic, but I'm going to give it all the same. Where do you think children get these habits and traits that they acquire? Is it from the friends they play with, the schools, or from their parents?
It's from their parents, for sure. The person who said the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree knew exactly what they were talking about. And I think we really have to go back to where you are as a single unit. As a unit of society, that's man, that's a human. And you interact with other people. And then from there, you from your family to your neighborhood, to your community, and then to the country at large. It's individuals who are making constant decisions to do the certain things that they do. And that you then have the mixing of molecules, and then it becomes a national thing. It becomes a national psyche until it's even in entertainment circles because it has become the accepted way of doing things. But it all began from the individual. These people that we see being spoken about as leaders, they have homes. They came from somewhere.
You know, as far as I'm concerned, the leadership began this trend. This forking out of money, giving people money out. It wasn't even in our culture to go around asking people for things. It was actually wrong to ask even a stranger for money. It was considered an abhorrent behavior. It became the norm because, you see, it's where do you get it? My example lent itself to this very view. Where do you think we get our examples from? From people we look up to. And for the longest time, leadership were looked up to.
Yep.
They were genuinely looked up to.
Yep.
The term Weshmua didn't just come out of thin air.
There was the respect and honor that came along
Yes,
with it.
yes.
Right.
It's the same thing, if you want to understand it, it's with the teaching profession. That for the longest time, teachers were just about the most respected individuals you could ever come across. Then, the ghoul of money came into being. And one would look at you and quantify you. And if you're a teacher, you're certainly not paid very highly. So you're
didn't
not
expect
really
much
that
from you.
important. Why do you think most of our parliamentarians in those early days were teachers? One could argue they're the most educated, but yes, most knowledgeable, yes, but they were respected. And even after that, that went out of the window completely. You'd better have a ton of money if you want to enter any political contest.
People don't call themselves Mwalimu anymore.
No.
Are you going to parliament and saying Mwalimu so and so?
The
And
moment
yet, used to be a title.
it was, and the moment you say Mwalimu, what you've decided is you've declared immense poverty.
This
You are
person is very
completely
poor
poor.
and
Yes.
meek.
Yes.
Meek is the word. Yeah. Poor and meek is what you would be referred to as Mwalimu. And so, yeah, I do think so. Yes, that people that you look up to, if they're not leading the example, that's what people are going to follow. And you assume, all right, if somebody needs then to sway me in a particular direction and they're going to be able to do that by giving some money, then it becomes the norm and it becomes the order of the day. In this case, when you say you have a flat tire on the road and somebody needs you to give some money in order to help, the same way, you need me to vote for you?
Nduh, we've had
Throw a
people
kit.
being elected on the grounds that, the last time you stood, we took your money, but we didn't vote for you. So this time we'll vote for you.
Just give us.
Because we know you took
ate
your
your
money. We know, and we also know you spent a lot of money. So this time we'll give you.
Yeah.
Meaning, it is straightforward.
It's a transaction.
Straightforward.
It's business.
Yes. Which also means they don't really expect much. So they want it up front.
But I also come
Just
back
give
to
us now. We vote you in. We won't
Yeah,
disturb you
the other
later.
thing we're not going to do, we just get on with our business.
We
And
won't
then,
disturb you later and say,
Yeah,
why was
and
this road not done? Why is this thing not
The
happening?
guilty
Because you
conscience has
paid,
been
eh?
pricked.
yeah, and plus also you're not alone. The other people who
other
seem
people
to have
can
more
do this
money,
work.
we can eat that. But
Wow.
call it cynical, but that seems to be the attitude of
that is
politicians.
the order of the day.
Anyone right now who is thinking of going into an electoral position in 2022, some of them are started forking out money now.
No.
Not talking, forking out money.
But then there's poor leadership in the current parliament, and this has been said many times. We want to talk about that. What do you think about the leadership of the National Assembly and the Senate, and also what do you think about the character and the conduct of the members of these two houses presently? There's a report today in the Star that talks about senators being bribed
Page 6. of the
with
Star.
millions of shillings. So they can either take one position or the other when it comes to this vote. We'll discuss that in the next hour. Before we do that, let's remind you about this portal by the Kenya Ports Authority, kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. We are looking at 16 steps that you need to know when you're importing goods into the country. These are very simple steps, and you'll find them on the Captain Cargo portal. We are helping CT Muga import a consignment of generators from the UK to Mombasa. How far are we?
So now we're on this is what would happen. They probably happen in a more fluid motion than we're looking at it now. So by the time papers are being passed, payments are being done, all of these things have happened. But for you to understand, and Cargo says these steps. Step 12 now, the shipping agent then sends an electronic delivery order to KPA. The payments have been done. The order goes to KPA, so KPA knows, all right, these things are coming in and we have all the relevant documentation that we should. So now they verify the cargo on the other side as well. It's great because it's done electronically. And then they issue a release order, which is also electronically received by KPA. So they're basically telling these guys in the UK, all right, everything is in order, send it over. We're going to look at the last 3 steps and then see how you will get your precious cargo.
What I'd like to know is, what if this system has a problem? Does it mean my goods will be delayed?
Captain Cargo will tell us that because there's also a communication channel on this portal in terms of how you can find out this information if things go missing.
So then there's a very strong customer care department which would answer all the questions. I mean, if you feel that your goods have been delayed and you're wondering, so where are they? There's an information desk that is able to give you, oh, this is where we are and this is what we expect to happen as well.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week support.
Imagine. kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. This is the information portal by the Kenya Ports Authority. Log on to it, find all the information you need. And it's important to get information even before you begin something. You know, as opposed to how we do as Kenyans. Get the car, import the car, and then start wondering, so now?
My car has actually reached Mombasa.
Yeah. So now, what am I supposed to do?
Do you know someone who knows someone at customs?
Kubwa niko na gari yangu hapa. Imekuja. What do I need to do? All right, coming to the top of the hour, just let's remind ourselves of today's proverb.
It is the calm and silent water that drowns a person.
It's the calm and silent waters that drown a person. It appears like there's no Swahili version of this. If you know of a Swahili version of this proverb, please tweet us on Spice FM KE Twitter or Spice FM KE as well on Instagram or Facebook. We'd like to know the Swahili version, or equivalent, or anything that comes close to addressing the same thing that this proverb is addressing. It is the calm
It's a calm and silent
water
that drowns.
that drowns a person.
Yes.
Good morning. It's now 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it down.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM.
Okay, looking much
Nairobi.
better on Mombasa Road. It's still slow in some areas, but you'll get into the CBD without much of a problem. Getting around to 9 o'clock, where things will look much better now in different parts of the city. Nothing else jumps out at us right now, except the fact that we know that there's still some traffic on Thika Road getting into the CBD. All right, Umoja, around that area, blocking of roads as police trying to get through, and Matatu's kind of blocking everything there. So hopefully that opens up soon enough. Jogger Road also just a little bit of a hiccup right around the city stadium roundabout, but you'll get towards the industrial area or towards the CBD without too much of a problem. Not to forget, Spice FMKE on Twitter. That's how you can reach us.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Nduh Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The
Wherever
only
you
way.
are around the country, welcome to the final hour of the Situation Room this Thursday morning, the 20th day of August 2020. If you are in Malindi, 97.7 is our frequency. When you go to Njeri, it's 90.9, 96.7 in Eldoret. In Nakuru, it's 96.0, 102.5 in Kisumu. In Mombasa, it's 87.9. And Nairobi, 94.4. We also live stream this show on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. In the last hour, we spoke to the second longest serving Speaker of the National Assembly, Francis Ole Kaparo, and we were talking about what it takes to steer Kenya's parliament. And he gave us that example of the 1993 parliament. Well, this is the man who was Speaker in 1993, the first multi-party parliament after the repeal of Section 2A. And he's telling us, so we had 100 MPs from KANU, 100 MPs from a combined opposition. And then we had 12 MPs who were nominated, and all of them nominated by KANU. So KANU has 112, opposition combined has 100. This is a evenly split house. For the first 6 months at least, people were not, members from across the aisle were not even saying hello to one another. And it took him to see, I need these people to operate as if we are parliament. We are not an extension of the executive and opposition political parties. We are the parliament of the Republic of Kenya, and we need to think and act in unison. And he had to come up with ways of doing that. And even eventually he got to a point where he's the one who introduced the Speaker's Kamkunji, a platform where you bring in the members and you tell them, guys, what we say here remains here, but let's air out what we feel and let's arrive at consensus. So we go back to the House. We are not arguing from, opposite sides where we're pulling very hard. We basically have at least tried to reach a consensus. Now, compare that with what we're seeing now. The Senate has gone through how many sittings again?
9.
9. And none of those sittings appears to get closer to a consensus than the previous one. In fact, every new time we have a sitting, there's a new amendment to a previous amendment that's being introduced. That means that these senators are getting further and further away from agreeing. There are some votes where you see you expected so-and-so to vote yes or no, and now they are voting the opposite of what you expected them to vote. So positions are also shifting, and it's not clear exactly what's happening. And then what emerges today? The Star, page 6, CT. What does it say?
The Star on page 6. High corruption. Bribery claims rock Senate in revenue sharing formula standoff. Some of the counties reportedly contributed 10 million to rescue or to secure the support of at least 6 senators in rejecting the proposal. A senior government official added 50 million.
Rejecting the proposal. So counties have contributed money, and a senior government official has contributed 50 million shillings of his
To
loose
the same
change.
cause.
Some
It's vegetable money.
Unataka pesa ngapi? Sina pesa, unajua. Yeah, just take this 50. Ununulia watu chai.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, the arithmetic is not 10 plus 6 plus 50, 60. No. 6 counties gave money.
10 million each.
Yes. Consider that probability.
And also, you can imagine that there will be other interests that have also contributed money
Yes.
to go and try and influence some senators.
Even if you just say it was 10 as a sum total,
Plus 50.
plus 50, 60.
60.
All right.
And there are 6 senators. So each senator gets how much?
10.
10 million.
Okay.
To sway the votes in a particular
Well, why don't
One
you
vote.
do the math even with the 47 of them, and you suddenly find that there was a lot of money. If we were to believe this report to be true, a lot of money was, and this is what is being reported. So,
Yep.
but it didn't start with this. No, not really. Not really. We've had very many cases upon cases that have been reported by our media regarding similar claims. We even had in 2018 the Speaker of the National Assembly, one Mr. Muturi, he actually asked in the investigative agencies to come and actually investigate claims that money had exchanged hands to again delay, if not kill, a report that was supposed to come on the sugar industry. And then the amounts that were being claimed to have been given then were, should we say, reasonable amounts of 10,000 to 30,000. Okay. Yes.
These reports, even MPs have corroborated this information. MPs have come out to say, oh, yeah, this has happened before. In fact, MP Waluke has gone out in public and said, "Pesa inakuliwa hapa bwana." It's true. Money is being dished out to sway MPs a certain way.
We even have seen at the county assembly that why are people at the county assembly at that level, even we had people making sure that they slept in one place on a particular night so as not to be swayed or persuaded to vote in a different direction.
Yeah.
And what do we think
You're
persuasion
talking about
means?
sleeping in one place.
What do we think persuasion means, really?
What about the age-old practice when it came to councillors, where before a major election they would disappear
Yep.
and then just reappear
Reappear.
at the time of that particular vote?
Or when you wanted to get to be elected as mayor, you take them, all of them, to a certain hotel.
If I may
Come
use
as a
your-
delegation,
yes.
each of them driving their own brand new car, so they can vote.
If
for
I
you.
may use a term that you popularized, Nduh, you disappear them
Just like that.
and then you reappear them.
You reappear them.
Magic wand.
It's like we're living in cyber. I don't know. It's like an alternate universe. But then that's the thing. It's not an alternate universe because this seems to be an accepted way of doing things. It's not even called bribery anymore because that's exactly what it is. It's not called bribery. It's called, okay, let me persuade you.
It's called
to go.
persuasion.
So can you see now what we're talking about the other day? What I mean, again, off the back that this report is true, okay? Let's just put that in as a rider. That then all these tricks and the vehemence and the sensationalism that has surrounded the last 9 weeks actually holds no water whatsoever.
You have in Parliament, you have something, in National Assembly, you have something called the Powers and Privileges Committee that even has the powers to take. When these matters get to the House, they discuss it. They are the ones who have the powers to take it now to the investigative agencies. Okay. Now, I was thinking, what about if these are the ones who receive the money?
Ooh, the Powers and Privileges Committee.
Well, I'm thinking.
Yeah,
if
they're
you want-
also
if-
members.
They are members of Parliament, remember. So if you want to derail this thing, why don't you just go to the heart of the matter and have a conversation with the people who actually determine the direction which this thing takes?
Yep. This, a first-time member of parliament, Gathoni Wamushamba, she's a woman rep for Kiambu County, has gone out in the media and said, yeah, it's true. I have witnessed it with my own eyes. People being given money in the toilets. So even if we say that, okay, so the report today by the Star has not been corroborated, we have information that shows that indeed members of parliament have admitted that this is a practice that is rampant in the House. We have information that indeed shows that it's highly likely that there are some senators who have received money to persuade them to either reject or to accept a certain proposal that has been tabled on the floor of the House. And then there have been allegations, now these are allegations, that in fact, some of these senators, what happens is that they kula pande moja, and then they voted the other way, and now they are really, really scared. They're not
Because
sure,
they've already
okay, so
eaten the
what
money.
happens? Yes, because you already, you came and you took 5 million shillings, and you said you were going to vote no. And then you went there and you did not even appear. So what happens in these senators is that they're not going to vote yes. They just will not vote no.
And where numbers count, you're not voting is as good as you voting.
Yep.
Because if the other side is solid and your vote is absent, then it means you might as well have given them the vote.
Giving them the vote.
But also of significance, please remember that there are two things about bribery. That sort of money, one, is not receipted.
Of course not.
Yes, and there's also no refund clause. So, and usually it goes into something that had been planned. It's not money that someone receives and sits on. So even if they ask to refund it, they don't have it.
Yeah, because, and you're not exactly true. And the thing is, they may run scared or whatever, as Eric was saying, but you're not really going to come to someone and say, Eric, I gave you 5 million shillings and you were supposed to vote or not vote in a certain way. That information is never going to come public.
No.
You can never use it as a defense to say, what on earth happened? After all, I gave. Because what are you doing? Basically putting your head on the chopping block. But isn't it crazy that we're actually having this conversation? Isn't it crazy that this is the realities that we're being faced with when we're talking about just one issue of revenue allocation to the counties, and we're actually talking about the fact that all this drama that we were invited into over the last 2.5 months has been that individuals were speaking in the way in which they would have spoken, and they're doing that under the influence, in this case, of cash.
Ask yourself this, which senator or which member of parliament does not want to be a governor, given the privileges that the governor actually clearly has? And this is very simple maths. We all know the allocation that each county receives is in the billions. There's no county in this country that does not receive billions of shillings every year. So someone looks at this and figures, okay, you want us to authorize these billions to come to you.
Let
You come to me.
We will do so, but
come.
because this is the only opportunity I have to also build my war chest, so that when your term comes to an end, I can have a stab at this very job of yours. This is the opportunity I have. And I know if I delay it, you won't have the money that will keep your popularity where it should be. So essentially, they knew here we have an upper hand.
So it's all about the Benjamins.
Oh, it always is. I mean,
is
at the
what
end of the
it-
day, if
this
you want
is
to
what it
simplify
is.
it, you'll say it's about money. Politicians never really quarrel about anything ethical, anything substantive. It's money. Believe me, it boils down to money. It may not seem so, but it is.
You and your ethics, Shauri Yako.
We listened to what Kaparo said a few minutes ago, and he said that at that time, or as far as he believed and as far as he led, that when people came into the House to debate on certain things, they were debating on issues of national importance, and that their allegiance was to the House.
They did.
Political issues were not brought to the fore, whereby you argued for your party, you then your allegiance was to the House, okay?
Not entirely true.
I mean-
not entirely true, but it's what predominated the conversation.
This does not seem to be the case whatsoever. It is about individual preferences, what you want to be in the future, political alignments, how you want people to be able to vote for you in the future. And if you say, okay, well, maybe I'm not interested in that particular position, but there's something else I'm interested in, and you can make it worth my while to then give you my voice. It's become a cattle market. That's what it is.
No,
Yeah.
it hasn't. Actually, it hasn't become.
It's
It
trading
has
on
continued
the,
to be.
It's trading on the open
It's
floor.
expanding.
It's
Yes.
trading on the open floor, and it has
Yes.
become an accepted way of doing things.
Yes.
An acceptable way of doing things. And I'm saying that absolutely not should not be.
And because of the power that Parliament holds, especially when it comes to allocating funds to any agency, you don't hear of any investigation.
Yes. How are you
Because the
going
moment you open an investigation as
They
the
say,
SEC,
okay.
we're going to summon you and we say, all right, you guys don't deserve this amount of money that you've received this year, go back. So you're crippled
yes,
as
they
an
said ask,
investigative agency.
they said ask you a question you don't want to be asked. So
Yep.
what do you do with the money we gave you previously?
Yeah.
In fact, this one, no,
No.
take half.
Take.
You know, they have those powers,
In
actually.
fact, we lose confidence in the leadership of this organization.
And become a very serious debate in one of our two houses. Serious. And they remember, they have the powers. What you're seeing here, we saw it with the salaries. We thought it was just the salaries, where the unity of purpose and the time taken to arrive at a decision and implement was short, completely brief. Now, the unity of purpose seems to have been understood further. As Eric correctly puts it, it's expanded. You now have a situation where they figure, okay, a little arithmetic is useful here. You know, there's life after this particular parliament.
Yeah.
And that life requires Kenya shillings. Yes, it does. And these guys have the money.
They have the money.
And we know they have the money. And wait, there's somebody, but you know we're going to give the money. Oh, we are, aren't we? And how do we benefit from this? So we just give them the money. Said, no, that is not a situation that we want to continue. This status quo is not useful. So,
Pesa mtapata. In fact, I'm sure if you spoke to any of these senators individually, they'll tell you, you know what? A formula will pass. In one way or the other, we don't have an option.
Don't fear.
A formula will pass.
Eventually
and
something
money will
will
be
come.
released. And we already know it's 316 billion shillings.
we know.
So however much comes to your county, I mean, it's not going to be such a big difference. But in the meantime,
We have to keep up this drama for
And
some-
we are also not unreasonable.
Yeah.
We understand your people need to receive this money. And we understand that the sooner we give it to them, the better. But you also have to understand. The rest is left to you, for you to figure out.
just understand. 16 minutes after 9 o'clock, do we have a rogue parliament? Reports emerging not for the first time that parliamentarians are being bribed so that they can vote a certain way in certain crucial motions and crucial bills. What's happening to our house? Join the conversation 0719 012 600. Let's take a look at the weather. Is it raining money?
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Cloudy conditions is what
The
we see
weather
in Nairobi
with
at
Spice-
16 degrees. A bit of a sprinkle here and there. Highs of 23 and then lows of 14. Looking into different parts of the country now, and in Nakuru, we will see highs of 26 today and showers in most parts of the town. Njeri is going to be a wet afternoon as well, with highs of 26. Going and looking into Kisumu, then highs of 31 and cloudy conditions through the morning with chances of rain. Mombasa and Malindi, as we look at the coastal towns, we'll see highs of 28 in Malindi and highs of 27 in Mombasa, and showers intermittent throughout the day. Kakamega this morning is at 17 degrees, cloudy conditions, highs of 26 and lows of 18, and then looking into Kisumu with highs of 30 and lows of 25. Let's look out then into Kampala, where at 26 degrees, we'll see highs of 28 and lows of 17 today, and showers in most parts. Foggy conditions continue to reign over Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 25 today. And in Johannesburg at 3 degrees, a crisp day throughout, sunny conditions later and going to a low of -1. In Lagos, it's overcast at 26, highs of 33 and lows of 25. It's partly cloudy conditions throughout London today, highs of 30 with a warm day. Looking at highs of 29 in Paris, and showers expected throughout the day, and coming well into Thursday morning in New York, we'll see highs of 28 and lows of 18.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
Conversation
FM.
continues of a rogue parliament that we have, that we clearly seem to have. And this is by direct admission of some members of parliament, some sitting members of parliament who have already said, yeah, these things happen. I have witnessed personally people being given money to induce them to vote a certain way. There's a report that's been published this morning by the Star newspaper that's talking about certain counties even contributing to a kitty that was going to persuade some senators to vote a certain way, to reject the proposal that has been presented in the National Assembly. 6 counties contributing 10 million shillings, one senior government official contributing 50 million shillings. And of course, this does not talk about the other side as well, of those who are induced with some cash so they can vote yes for these proposals. These reports have also been heard. I mean, these are allegations, yes, but wherever there's smoke, there's fire. And indeed, there's a fire there. So, City, you're saying that according to this report, 10 million shillings each by the 6 counties to persuade the 6 senators who...
Well, it doesn't
We're
even end
looking
there.
iffy.
There's a gentleman whose infamy, I think, became a national matter. A gentleman by the name of Francis Mburu. And this was the case about the Ruaraka school land. Now, he at the time, when this thing was at its peak, claimed that members of this very august house had asked him for 100 million shillings. He claimed. So, he actually made it, the claim, public, and we knew about it. Now, what about the claims or that we don't read about or we don't hear about?
Yeah.
It can't be that these issues are coming out of thin air, because these matters were before the Senate. This, by the way, if you're talking about matters that are before the Senate that have a huge cash value, nothing is bigger than this division of spoils that goes to the counties. It's a lot of money. Remember me, I've had a problem with the zeros in a billion, right?
Yes.
Now this one is 361. So my problem
Billion.
is, yes, so my problem is really genuinely compounded here. Now it's being divided up, and some people feel, well, the division is all good and well, but surely a small matter of tributaries branching off from the main source wouldn't be such a terrible idea, would it? After all, you would still get the bulk of the money anyway. And what we're asking for is pittance compared to what you're getting. And if
You
the
can call it facilitation.
So people say, no, but look, you know the matters regarding you, the governor. Remember, any time you have an issue of impropriety where money is concerned, the governor, they end up in the Senate. Same Senate.
Yep.
So the Senate has sufficient information that they can hold as a sword over the head of the governors and
heads of
say,
these governors.
you in particular.
So then what I hear you saying then is this makes sense, because it would only make sense that the governors then, or the counties, would raise this kind of, what did you call it? Facilitation fee. Would raise its facilitation fee because it's taken to the floor of those who essentially would be the ones to land the big chop on said governors should anything go awry.
But they are the ones.
Yes.
They are the very same people who also will decide whether you go home or you don't. It was thought that this was sort of the chambers for aged people who required more sleep than others. We are suddenly seeing that it has actually more teeth than we had previously envisioned. The
It's a very vibrant market.
Yes, the whole function that they have vis-a-vis our devolved system had not been fully understood.
Yeah.
It's now this. You see, if you take matters and give them a monetary perspective in this country, they're very easily understood. Remember, they decide more or less money coming to you, even amounts. Okay? They also decide whether governor goes home, stays home, okay? Or goes away completely. These fellows have powers.
They do.
Yes, they do. So these are the powers that we are now seeing being reported as being exercised. And as I said, it all revolves around money.
Yep.
And who gets what. So, Eric, you correctly put it. We're talking about people who are supposed to subvert a certain process. Money, from what, again, we read and hear, is usually distributed. It becomes skewed depending on what your role should be, but almost everybody ends up receiving some.
And everybody knows about it. Listen to this. Remember the statement by Raila Odinga, which was issued the day before yesterday. I'm going to read this first 2 paragraphs. The events surrounding the arrest of senators yesterday, just like the acrimonious stalemate that has seen the Senate disagree a record 9 times on sharing of revenue among counties, stand as stark reminders that our struggle for a democratic state is far from finished. That is clear, right? So here he's talking about the arrest and what it means. Also, he says, the events have also laid bare the so far unsuccessful struggle to make integrity and search for public good over private gain the basis of our politics and holding of public office. Your guess is as good as mine what Raila is making reference to here when he says that this has laid bare the unsuccessful struggle to make integrity and search for public good over private gain the basis of our politics. He is basically here, if you just one interpretation of it would be saying, look, it basically is showing that these parliamentarians will not agree until they're given what they feel is enough for them.
So
It's for personal gain that we are seeing a Senate sitting 9 times and not agreeing.
and then you see this report of things that were happening. So look,
And it adds up.
it does. And then if you're going to base it on that, then be prepared to see this go to week 23, 24, 25, until those who now are hoping to get something in their pockets are adequately satisfied. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I've had enough now. All right, go ahead. Let's make this decision. Because then it's being held in the balance, right? That's what's being happened. That's what's a decision could, and that's why I said 9 weeks ago a decision could have been made.
Yep.
8 weeks ago, a decision could have been made. But somebody somewhere is pulling the strings, and several people along the line are pulling these strings to essentially say, look, I could vote a certain way. We could make the decision tomorrow.
And by the
But
way,
look, sing my tune, and then
we go.
and then we dance.
And Raila didn't just make that reference once, all right? The twin scenes of failing integrity among a section of elected representatives during this whole affair and the instinct by agents of the state to resort to strong-arm measures to get things accomplished continue to hold our country back. So he's basically looking at them two ways. So there's the state and the use of force, police, to try and persuade you using the force, and then there's the instinct by the elected representatives to not hold themselves the way they should. Representatives of the people lose the capacity to stand up to the state when their actions are colored by considerations other than public good. What is Raila telling us? Raila is telling us, those guys in there, their consideration, they come up here and they tell you, oh, it's about public good. It's about marginalized counties.
Nothing.
It's about people who, the counties that require more money so they can serve you better.
It is
No.
not. Personal gain is what is going on
Personal
in there.
gain.
And then for you to understand how even more warped this entire story is that we heard a few weeks ago how the governors were complaining, oh, we're not able to do anything.
Yeah.
We cannot pay county staff. We cannot roll out operations within county because we've not received this money. And then for you to come and hear later, actually, that they may have had their hands in the cookie jar as well. What are we doing? Who's fooling who here? And here Kenyans are listening to all of this, and they're watching some legislators being arrested, and they're saying, oh my goodness. They're even going out into the streets and protesting and saying, no, this cannot happen. And it's all part of a game.
This is a gravy train.
It's all part of a game.
We are being
So
robbed.
for how long
and
will
being
Kenyans'
entertained while
minds,
at it,
yes,
all right?
being
So we
robbed,
just-
being entertained, taking from you here and then tickling your ear with a feather to make you feel a little bit satisfied, but you're being robbed at the same time. So how long are the minds of Kenyans going to continually be on this altar of impunity, bribery, theft? I mean, because that's what it is. And then you're being fed a little dog and pony show to make you think that everything is actually okay. I mean, after all, these are legislators and they need to make a decision, a proper decision about how revenue is going to be shared in the country towards development. Meanwhile, it's people who are greasing their pockets day in, day out. You saw it in a report. You heard it from a leader. What more do you want?
The first major scandal that this country first sort of like became aware of was 1965. Mm-hmm. It was a maize scandal. If you think that Mheshimiwa Waluke and his co-conspirators were the first people to bring this to the fore, 1965.
They were storing air too.
Yes, one Mr. Paul Ngei, an independence hero, was involved in a maize scandal, not dissimilar to the ones that we've been reading about. Shocked the nation. However, it was the beginning of a series. It's like every government in this particular country had its pet scandal. From Kenyatta to Moi to Kibaki, and Uhuru. And what is significant about it, with every regime, they seem to up the ante. They seem to just push the amounts of monies. There are some which are actually very bizarre. Like there was one, a certain company called Kumson. This one, I particularly like this one because they were supposed to provide the police force with some vehicles that came from India. The company was called Kumsons and the vehicle was called Mahindra. I'm not certain why it is they chose that particular vehicle, but I got the impression that if you walked fast enough, you could move faster than that vehicle. But what was the significance that they were being bought for 1 million shillings each, and yet the real cost in the showrooms, which means that is value added, was a sixth of the price. Yes. But just if you think that was an issue, again, you hear of Goldenberg, the longest standing scandal we've had, and the series of things that happened. And then there were other issues regarding helicopters that were supposed to service, and the service we were told at that time should come from South Africa at 360 million. And the people, the military themselves came up in arms and said, no, but we can do this thing here locally. We don't need to take this thing to South Africa. But what was of interest was that the helicopters we were talking about also needed to be bought, and we were buying second-hand helicopters. And you wondered, what on earth is this? Just when you thought it was again safe to get out of the waters, then you hear of yet another scandal. There's a ship which cost us something like 4.1 billion shillings. Now, stories abound. Some stories say that this was a merchant ship that was being refitted to become, should we say, a navy ship, a fighter ship. And you're asking, and experts, again, it was reported in a paper, said, but if you just buy it or get it, you don't buy it, you give specs and it's actually manufactured for you.
For you.
It will cost 1.8 billion. So essentially, you're buying 2.5 ships for the price.
That one.
Yeah. So it's not as though we've lacked them. What is of significance now, it isn't a few players who perhaps are within government and have connections, or what we call cabals and what have you, all these fancy names we give them. It has come to the august houses where when we make our laws, where we debate issues, where we bring people who have abrogated these laws at that level to book. That's where it has now entered.
And this is the office which is supposed to be checking on the excesses
of others.
Yes. So that's why this one is absolutely serious. Because if it has gotten there, remember we've heard of complaints about the judiciary. Now, thankfully to the media has reported very, very accurately of how right now the judiciary does its own house cleaning. They themselves have a process where they don't only vet, they determine. They get data as to which particular part of the country is considered most corrupt by those who consume the services. Which particular part of the country or which judicial service within the country provides the best services. We have this information. And I'm sure which they don't tell us, they even know the specific judges who are complicit in some of these cases.
Yep.
So in short, you can see house cleaning being done internally. Now, the very, very units within Parliament or within our august houses, that the committees that are supposed to deal with these things, if they themselves have a problem, how will any serious matter of corruption in this country ever
be dealt with?
Ever be dealt with?
How?
And who's left?
And they stand up there and they shed crocodile tears. All right. So let's say, let's just give some benefit to the doubt, all right? Put some benefit here and say there may be some members of this august house who are clean, who have a clean conscience, who will say, no, I will not take a bribe. I will vote with my conscience. I will vote the right way, what I feel I'm convicted is what the way I should vote. But those members clearly know that
Who
people
these
are
others
receiving
are.
money. And they know that this is happening. And they know who is receiving money and from whom.
And they know how much.
And they know how much. The fact that they don't speak about it lumps them in the same basket as those that are receiving.
Yeah.
So we can't really say at you, it's not everybody who's bad.
There's some people
Come
who are
on.
left.
As long as you're in that house and you know that people are receiving money to sway them to vote a certain way,
Omission
and
commission.
you do not speak about it, you're part of them.
Yes.
So I'll tell you about what Professor Kithure Kindiki said in the Senate the other day. And when he was giving the example of talking about the king who saw writings on the wall, mene tekel, and he said, one day soon there will be a wall and you will see the writing on the wall. He also gave the example of Burkina Faso in 2014. What happened? The people of Burkina Faso were pissed off with their parliament. They went and torched it. And he was saying, you know what? Kenyans are watching us. And if we don't take care, They could do what they did. in
It's an
Burkina Faso.
appropriate. It's an appropriate warning. What do you think the Arab Spring was all about?
That's what it was. People getting tired of this kind of
They
nonsense.
just got tired. They
Yeah.
figured, we really don't have to put up with this. Not really. By the time you have one cleric, is being mentioned, one fiery cleric in Mali, being able to actually hold sway and maintain the sort of protests. These were protests continuously. They only had a small break because of Ramadan. Or Eid rather, not Ramadan, Eid. Beyond that break, they continued. It means that the sentiments that the gentleman had found favor. The people identified with it. And they were willing to continue identifying with it. Yes. Our leaders don't seem to see or understand this.
That
They
there
seem
will
to
come
think,
a time.
yes,
There will come a time
And not
when
in-
this cup will overflow.
and not in the too distant future either.
No. When it will be too much and people say, you know what, maybe before the wool had been pulled over our eyes, so we didn't really know what was going on, or that, we saw this drama that was playing out, but we really didn't understand what was going on behind the scenes. But it'll get to a point where Kenyans will say, you know what, we can actually see what's going on. We are well aware of what is happening. And you can't now hold us ransom to this over and over again. And it sounds like doomsday prophecy, but people will get tired and then they will take whatever recourse they need to make sure that this thing stops. Just like you're saying, Keita was removed. He was removed by the military who used the machinery to put forth a sentiment that was felt by the general population.
Yes.
People feel, and nobody, the people who are condemning the who condemned the coup and the kidnapping was everybody else except the people of Mali.
Who are the ones who feel the brunt of
Who are the
everything-
ones who feel the
brunt
pinch in terms of
everything?
what was happening in terms of corruption, in terms of bribery, in terms of all crazy things that had kept that country under the shackles of underdevelopment for so many years. Everybody condemned it except the people who were applauding it. And when they heard the gunshots in Bamako, when they heard the gunshots not far from Kati, the people were gathering in the public squares and they began to applaud.
They're not running away.
No!
They're cheering the soldiers on.
And it didn't take too long. They said, go ahead and do it. Why do you think? Years and years and years of this kind of nonsense playing out until the people said, you know what? We're tired.
Enough is enough. 24 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. This conversation continues. Join the conversation. 0719-012-600. At what point does enough become enough to ensure that the people that we've elected to watch and to ensure that our lives are good and are running smoothly are the ones that are eating? Hey.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, so it's looking much better as we look at it now. We're going to still see a little bit of traffic along Mombasa Road, but coming out should be fine. Coming off of Thika Road also, use the overpass, the Globe overpass, when you're coming off of Thika Road as you pass Muranga Road, because then you'll be fine. And it is moving very smoothly this morning. You'll forget that you were in traffic for the last 30 minutes. Then after that, it looks good, guys. Jogo Road coming off Langata Road, Ngong Road, it's all right. Mombasa Road is where we'll get rid of that issue in a short while. Okay, Spice of MKE through the day. If anything does happen, and we can be able to deal with that with the information that you send to us.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
All right, a rogue parliament, members of the Senate who are accused of receiving bribes so that they can vote one way or the other, especially on this particular present case, the revenue sharing formula. And these are allegations that have been published in a newspaper today, but these are allegations that we've heard from other quarters. I mean, it's nothing new about members of parliament being bribed to vote a certain way. And we want to hear what you think about this. 0719-012-600. You can join the conversation. You can also join the conversation on Twitter, Spice FMKE, Facebook, and Instagram as well.
You know, in 2006, late February, something very interesting happened. The Standard newspaper and KTN ran a story, and the story was regarding the President Mwai Kibaki meeting with one of the opposition leaders, Kalonzo Musyoka. Then the series of events that followed were actually very, very interesting. Masked gunmen toting AK-47s entered the newsrooms, the TV station. The power was shut off. People were thoroughly pounded. They were thoroughly beaten. And when the Minister for Interior at that particular time, one John Mishuki, was asked, he said, well, this was to safeguard state security. And it's from that incident that the famous statement, if you rattle a snake, you must be prepared to be bitten by it, came into being. Now, it is important that there is a check and balance between the various instruments or the various houses, the various arms of government, all right? But if the very arm were not just legislation, but these very serious matters that determine the way forward for the country is being presented as being compromised, you then want to ask the police, we want to question police brutality. We want to question the way the police conduct their business.
Yeah.
The people who hold the higher ground when it comes to legal matters in this country are reported to be behaving in this way. What do you think is going to happen? What do you expect?
You're fomenting dissent. That's what you're doing.
Because the police also have
Over
authority.
and over and
They
over
also
again.
have power.
Yes.
So it's like everyone utilize the power that has been given to you by the Constitution
And
to
press this
benefit
thing down.
and to benefit yourself as you see fit. That's the message you keep sending. And then we keep talking about trying to fight corruption. Which one? Fight it in which direction? Increase it? Multiply it? Or reduce it?
And here Kenyans are thinking, all right, this is actually a debate then about how counties are going to get the relevant allocation, and we're going to be able to see development, and we're going to push Kenya forward, one step, two step. People talk about things grand and lofty like public participation and development index, and people are here joking around with the whole process. I mean, really, is that where we're going with this? Is that where we are going with this?
It's not going.
Nowhere.
It's where we are. Eric actually got it right the first time. We are seeing a multiplication effect here. By the time such information gets to the papers and is being printed, believe me, those who are writing it have done due diligence. They may protect their sources, but they know exactly what they're talking about. People talk about money being given to the toilets. Money is given even in the seat of the house. You're talking about the toilet. From the reports that we read. So for it to be given that freely, it means it is expected. We have members of these august houses who have a firm reputation as being honest brokers. People who are known that when they're given money to divide, it is divided exactly as it was understood. Others will never see money because they are known. When they're
Don't give
given money,
so-and-so.
magic happens. The money disappears.
You received 50 million and you only came to divide 25.
Yeah, no. What do you mean 25? 10. See that? They told you, no.
Oh, that's not what came.
So, when you have this horse trading in a house such as this one, you really have to pause and say, goodness gracious me, where are we headed?
Where is it?
And it isn't difficult to figure out where we're headed, by the way.
No, it isn't.
Because all these things just mean that what is the right of every Kenyan is then going to be denied them.
Look, I really wish that there would be a time where we let's look at the continent, for example. Look at what is happening. Look at what has happened over time. Those are blaring examples emblazoned in the skies of what can happen when you continue to push your people into a hole that they shouldn't actually be in.
They don't need to be in.
They don't have to be there. We have right now the presidents of Niger and Cote d'Ivoire who are saying that, you know what, actually, this time period that we've talked about, we're going to run for the next election, even after we said we're not going to run. We're going to run for the next election, and the time starts now. The time starts now, so we're at zero. Both of them, we're at zero, and we're going to look for 2-3 terms. What are the people already saying? Look at Cameroon, where people who have been silenced for decades are coming out and they're saying, you know what?
Enough.
It's enough. Let's do whatever we need to do so that our voice can be heard. Let's stop this marginalization, that buzzword, famous. Let's stop it. So that we need to kill people.
So be it.
So be it. We need to come out in the streets and say that if we're not going to have access to this administration, nobody's going to have access to it. If that's what needs to happen for you to listen to us, that's what we're going to do. How have civil wars begun?
That's how they begin.
How have they begun? Whereby you have internal conflict. What normally happens? You step on the rights of people, you steal what actually should be to their benefit. When you've been given a position of authority and leadership where you say this is the way in which you should govern and lead, and then you don't do it. And then you have this nonsense where people are taking money that so that you can make a decision that is going to so that you can make a decision, you're taking money. And you expect that you'll be able to do it over and over and over again, and the people are going to remain silent like sheep to the slaughter. Can't happen.
What is even stranger is our attitude as citizens, where we think that we stand on the side of angels and we are fighting it. And you know how we think? Why must they take so much? You can just take a little bit. Hey!
Just take a little bit, not too much.
No.
And you know also
It's
what is
no,
the attitude?
you don't take anything. It isn't yours.
The attitude also is that, you're here shouting. Nduh, you're here shouting. If it were you in that position, you would do the same, if
So
not
we
worse.
excuse it.
So here you are making noise and saying that it's not right. But let's look. If you were there, you would also do the same.
What do we need to do, though, to stop this? What do we need to do to ensure that Parliament retains its integrity
You ask them to retain something they don't have.
or recovers?
Get it back.
Get it back is more like it, and not retain it.
So Parliament gets its integrity back. How do we bring integrity back to both houses of Parliament? In fact, all houses of Parliament.
From our end,
the National Assembly, the Senate, and the county assemblies.
Eric, from our end, we just continuously call out what we know to be wrong.
How do you clean something?
If we keep quiet and decide that it isn't so bad, we've actually said it is okay. We've actually given the green light. Please continue.
Yeah. And I
Well,
liken it to
if we're just talking and doing nothing else.
No, it begins the talking. It begins the talking. It
you have
always
to
does.
bring it out, I think.
It's something that has to be spoken about, and they have to understand it's being spoken about. Because when you're quiet, then the understanding is that, well,
It's okay. You've accepted it and there's not a problem with
yes.
it.
But where we also need to be careful is that we don't sensationalize it and dwell on things which we can't prove and which are not true. We need to focus on things that can be proven, that can be documented, things that can be verified with clarity. And you keep saying it. So if the matter comes up, you simply say, these are our facts. Yes. The truth of the matter is that from my experience here, this is, the only empiricity is my experience, okay, which is really subjective, is that if there's one thing most people who know they do wrong fear more than a gun, is the truth. That's why I gave in the example of KTN and the Standard. All they did was say these two people were meeting. They didn't say anything more, just in secret. Hey? Man,
Nice of
the
them.
hellfire that rained on the head. Oh, think back. What is it that got people jailed or detained in an earlier time? They just spoke their truth. They didn't shoot anyone. They didn't threaten anyone's life. They just spoke it. That's it. Now, on the surface, what we've seen happening or playing out with the three senators is that it appears they were acting on their conscience. They said, no, this is the step one to take. But they were among other people. They said, this is our position here. Up to that point, we're doing very well. Then a story like this comes out and you wonder, okay.
You wonder,
Okay,
you
yeah,
ask
just
yourself,
leave
so
this whole
now
thing. So
what?
all this drama, what was it about?
What exactly is it actually? You start asking, okay, so fine, they were arrested, and all that. What was really happening here? What really happened? Because you have to answer that question. And if it happened,
To them, it's a game.
yes, what else has been happening?
Yeah. To them, it's a game. To them, getting arrested, they really don't mind the arrest.
Well, but it gives them free publicity.
It has given them that publicity. Their colleagues as well are not so pissed off that this happened. In fact, they're looking at it from the game of, okay, so why are they being arrested? It's because
this.
in this county, there's another senator who is on the other side.
So let's just
And in
increase
that
some
county,
drama.
there's another senator who's they are just removing our people so they can bring in their people. Now, how do we distinguish between our people and their people? It's who's been seen.
Eric, do you really think that our senators didn't know or don't know what has been happening? They do.
They do. They talk about it. I'm telling you, they talk about it openly.
They do.
They know, we are Mekulan, and that's why he'll not come and appear to vote. Johnson Odero in Kaha West, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Salama kabisa.
Nduh, hi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. City,
Yes.
how are you?
Super.
All right. My contribution is Eric was asking, how do we retrieve back, how do we get back integrity in the house?
Yes.
I don't think it's not going to happen with these kind of people we have. Previously, I thought that, like for national parliament, because the numbers are 300 plus, then controlling that can be hard. But for Senate, I thought now there are few, less than 60, you can easily manage, but it's becoming something that it is a part of us that we cannot get out with. Because if talking about bribery, or what to say, you say bribery is a bit harsh, maybe swaying.
It's bribery.
It's bribery.
Yes, bribery. For how long has it been there? Ever since. Then do you expect something dramatic to happen in this august house that we're going to change all of a sudden?
Unless we make it happen.
But are you accepting of this, Johnson? Is that what you're saying? That it's okay? I mean, this happens all the time. Were you expecting something else?
No. I'm not supporting. But I'm only wondering what will happen, because we are the people who elect them to those positions. We elect the very same people and we recycle them over and over again. But my thinking was, because these elective positions, I think they're luxurious. You do something, you get away with it. Nobody follows you. So when we take it to be like a responsibility, if I get out of this parliament, I'm held accountable of A, B, C, D, and this. If I didn't do this, this is going to be taken. But if I don't do something, I get out of the parliament. If I'm not re-elected, that's ends. It ends there.
Yep.
Nobody follows you, whether you did corruption or you taken some money. Nobody follows you. But if it's not that luxurious, it's become a responsibility kind of leadership, that if I'm not going to do this, I'm going to held accountable for this. Then that will change. But as we continue recycling these very same leaders, they keep on doing the same wrong thing. But I wonder, when will this end? When we reach the point of Mali, I don't know will be how many generations back. When they say now this is
enough is enough.
Enough. We can't chew this more.
Yep. Johnson, thank you very much. George in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing, my friends?
We're well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Allow me to actually make my contributions, please.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to say that, this journey begins with me and you. Of course, it starts with me and you. Now, allow me to actually go back to this story. Of course, there is a book I read some years back in class 6, Marching Ahead. There is this story of the hornbill in the bush, of course, the hornbill and the hunter. Now, there is this hornbill who used to make noise in the forest every now and then, and there is a ladybird that was actually disorientated by the noise that the hornbill kept on making every now and then. And it approached its neighbors and asked to tell them, you see, the hornbill is making noise. And the neighbors reacted and rejected. They said that the hornbill's pain is the hornbill's pain. Little did they know that they were going to face the consequences of the hornbill's noise. Now, when the hunter arrived, it aimed directly at the hornbill and it dropped dead. Immediately after that, the hunter cut the leaves of the banana and used it to wrap the hornbill. The hunter cut the tendrils, these bush climbers, and used it as a rope to actually tie his food. Again, the hunter proceeded to see the mushroom. There was a mushroom nearby there, and he said, no, mushroom makes a very delicious soup. The mushroom also faced the consequences. So in short, all the neighborhood, in fact, the nearby environment was affected. So we should not actually sit down and watch this mess while actually we have something that we can do. We should make noise, and we should realize that hornbill's pain is not hornbill's pain, but it's everybody's pain.
It's everybody's pain.
We should not just assume things. We should act. Of course, the little that I can do, the little effort that I can do can make a change.
True.
You people, you are doing your part there, and of course, you've been actually doing it. We are getting the freedom to express our views and opinions, which is contrary to what was existing in some years back. So we should actually make noise.
Thank
These
you,
people,
George.
To be empathetic enough, if we do not make noise, those people will relax. They feel that
That's true.
people are just okay, yeah.
Thank you, George. Thank you. Karaoke in Nakuru. Good morning, Karaoke.
Good morning to you,
Good morning.
you and City.
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
We are fine. I'm fine, thank you.
Super.
My question is, we ever since we started hearing of the bribery, even in Parliament, now the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
My only question that disturbs me is who the Parliament and Senate does not bribe itself, isn't it?
True.
Which is the source of this money? Where does this money come from? Where does it? In fact, the backstop at where this money comes from, because these guys do not bribe themselves.
No.
We agree on that.
True.
Where is the source of this money? Who gives out this money for these men and women, honorable men and women, to be bribed?
In this case, it's coming from Parliament. It's coming from other quarters as well. It's coming from the county governments, all of them.
Coming from who?
From county governments, with the reports
This
here
is the first
indicating there are
time
politicians who are doing this.
It
It comes from the private sector.
This is the first time that we have had money coming from county government. This is the first time, county government. This is the first time. This other time you have been hearing of Parliament being bribed. But we really do not know the source of money. Point number two, if the president can accuse or condemn the coup that took place in Mali, that means he does not even pay attention to his own country and to see what is happening today. Because we are in the same situation only because we have not taken to the road to demonstrate.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where we are.
Okay.
If he does not blame, if he can truly condemn the 6 or 7 days those people have been in the street condemning their president and even those who came to negotiate. That means the president does not even pay attention to anything that is happening in this country. That's where he is. If that is the position, that means truly, if that is the Senate that we have and the president, then it means we elected a goon to lead us.
You know something, Karaoke, something about our election that people keep saying that we keep re-electing. We actually we don't. If you look at the figures from 1963 and you even average it to the current time, it never goes beyond 45%. The only time that probably tilted in that direction was in 1992 with the multi-party election, when many of the incumbents were actually voted out. But we don't actually recycle. The vast majority of the people we elect, we never elect for a second term.
Yes, that's true. But you know also what happens, CT?
Yes.
But
So
tell me
we
something.
always kick out 75% of those that were in the previous parliament, but we never focus on the 25 that remain. That 25 is the same, and that 25 has a lot of sway on who you pick as a 20.
They are the rotten
75.
apples. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
They keep
Those are the ones
ruining the
that
bunch.
determine also who comes in to replace the 75 that have been replaced.
So essentially you're saying in this present day Kenya, it is good to be part of the 25.
Yep, the 25 is where the power is. Let's talk about the KPA portal, kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo.
So your stuff is almost here, CT, and according to Captain Cargo, a CNF agent submits a pickup order to KPA and pays the port charges. So now the port charges are paid for. And now, by the time we're doing this, the ship has already docked, right? The vessel is there and everything has been taken off, and the truck arrives at the port entry gate and is issued with a position slip. Remember that position slip when you are exporting your goods? There's another position slip now importing goods, and this is given to you by KPA. The truck proceeds to the yard and is loaded with the precious cargo that has landed from the United Kingdom, and thereafter a gate pass is issued to exit the port. So you're on your merry way with your generators, and Captain Cargo has told us how we can get through the 16-step process rather easily and seamlessly. And to answer your question, something gets stuck somewhere 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's somebody online to be able to tell you where your stuff is, because this cargo can actually be tracked and traced.
Good stuff, isn't it?
No, this is really very good stuff. But I'm having a problem with my transporter. We'll have to look into that later.
The truck guy.
Yes.
A truck guy.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So tomorrow we look at the process for something different, and you can find all this information on kpa.co.ke/Captain Cargo. This is the information portal by the Kenya Ports Authority. Coming to the end of the show, CT Muga, remind us today's proverb and the context.
It is the calm and silent water that drowns a man. You see, if you have rapids and you're fast-moving water, it already warns you of its power and its potential for danger for you. But if it's calm, you will not even think of the depth. You will not think of the undercurrents, which probably also exist. So it is more likely to get you into trouble because it doesn't forewarn you. The other variety I've mentioned forewarns you. This message is actually to our politicians. When the citizenry seem peaceful and calm, be careful.
You will drown.
The likelihood is high.
Bas. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow, God willing, Friday the 21st. We'll be here 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's now 10 o'clock. Say goodbye, Nduh.
Goodbye.